Hello, doers. Welcome back. My name is Jose Ignacio. Now, in this episode on our costing method series, we'll be focusing on the average costing method, which is AVCO for my acronym lovers. Now, this is for evaluating the cost of our manufactured products. Now, if you missed our costing overview, make sure to check out the key concepts I covered before continuing. Now, for those who already watched the costing overview, well, let's ask, what exactly is average costing? Now, this is important to remember, but average costing is a method that calculates costs by averaging the prices of purchased products that are already in stock. Now, it updates this value whenever new products are received or manufactured. Now, this approach is pretty useful when the prices of products and their components tend to change, or you source them from multiple vendors and that type of thing. In this video, I'll be creating two manufacturing orders for tables using differently priced components to illustrate how the average costing method determines the product cost. So, without further ado, let's get to our database. All right, doers. So to track the cost of manufactured products, we'll begin by setting a cost on our work center to reflect hourly labor and machinery costs. So inside of the manufacturing app, make your way over to Assembly Line 1 Work Center. And under the costing information heading, do you see this cost per hour field? Well, as you guessed it, here we have it set to $50 since I pay Steve quite well to build tables. Lucky Steve, he has a job. Okay, next, let's move on to the component costs. So in order to check that out, we're going to hop on over here into the inventory app. Now we can see the overview report for our final product, which is the table. Now to get there, navigate to its product page. From here, we go up to products, table. All right. Now, once that we're here in the products general information tab, you see this cost per units. Right now, it's currently set to 0. Now, for more different information or detailed information, we can actually just click on the Bill of Materials Smart button. And when we click on our product and then the Overview Smart button, boom, we have a report. Now, what does this report give us? Well, it provides information on the number of products that currently can be produced, along with the cost. Now, by checking the materials I need to make this table over here via the quantity and everything, what does that tell us? Well, I see that all the required parts are in stock, and that's a very good thing. And that means that I can basically produce one table right now. And that also means that inside of the BOM cost column, we could see the cost of production for all of this as well. Now, as you could tell, that's the work center cost we set up earlier. Beautiful. Now, if you check over here too, the product cost column over here tells us how much it costs to buy all of the raw materials as well. And that's kind of important. Now, for the first manufacturing order, I'll be building a table using a $10 tabletop and 4 of those beautiful legs. Now, before moving on, let's remember, this costs what? $30 because 10 and then 20, and that's 30. All right, using that photographic memory, let's create our first manufacturing order. Now, since you've definitely watched my manufacturing in one-step tutorial video before, I'm going to use a MO I created in advance. So in our case, make our way over there to our operations, manufacturing order, and select it. Perfect. Now, once that this MO is confirmed, I can start the work order over here by going over to the work orders tab. Now, I'll say that I spent 60 minutes working on this table like a very hard worker. Now I can complete the manufacturing order, marking it as done and applying it. And when we check the table's product form, and this is where it's very cool because all the magic comes together, we see that the cost is automatically adjusted from 0 to 80, which is a very large jump. Now that's really cool. But wait, there's more. Let's see what happens to the product cost when I process a second manufacturing order, because this is a very cool thing. Now, this time using more expensive components. So we're going to go back to our manufacturing orders via the breadcrumbs, which today are sourdough. And we're going to create a new one. All right. Now, after I confirm this MO, red icons under reserved indicate that I don't have enough components. But that's not a problem for Stealthy Wood. I can refresh my components quickly because I set up 0 reordering rules. Again, if you don't know what that is, be sure to watch my replenishment tutorial. But you already saw that, right, doers? All right. So in our case, we're going to go to the inventory app, operations, replenishment. And now, since the manufacturing order is confirmed, we can actually see the components appear on the replenishment page, reminding us to replenishment. Now, if we order 4 more table legs and 1 more tabletop, we're pretty much all set up. Now this creates a RFQ for my acronym lovers, and this basically tells us that I can process it in the purchase app. So let's go do that now. So we're gonna go to the purchase app, select it. I hear everyone's excited about DIY furniture these days, so our vendor raised their prices to double. Economy and whatnot, per usual. Now we'll confirm this order and receive the parts so that we can make our table. Beautiful. Now, after ordering the more expensive components, the product cost on the components form is automatically updated again from $5 to $10. Now, the cost is determined by the average price of table legs in stock. Now, since the $5 table legs were consumed, that only leaves us with the $10 ones. Boom. Now, that's what I've been talking about, doers. And I'm going to show you another neat trick right now. All right, so now if we make our way back over here to the manufacturing app and going into our MOs from the operations, we've basically received the parts, and I can see that the component status is available because of this nice little green status change. Now, to switch things up, we're going to tackle this order as if we were the assembler. So we're going to go back to the manufacturing overview, and I see we have a work order ready to launch at our workstation, assembly line 1. So let's select that. And it's time to do this. So we're going to click ready. And there we have it. Now, when we want to begin assembling our table, we simply go here, and to log our completed work, we simply enter the number of units built, which in our case is 1. And then we select mark as done. And I want to make a quick note that while you cannot adjust the time spent on the workstation here, we can still change it on the manufacturing order. So if we select the green back arrow over here, go back into operations and into manufacturing orders. Although the builder finished the assembly, the MO status is still as to close, which is kind of interesting since this means the MO requires a verification before it is completely marked as done. Now, inside of the MO's work orders tab, you can manually change the real duration to 60 minutes in our case right here. Perfect, doers. Now, I want to make a quick side note. On the components tab, there's no need to manually fill in the amount of components used or quantity of produced tables because updates are automatically pulled from where doers from the workstation. But we still need to mark the MO as done. So, checking the cost analysis report over here, that's available after closing the MO as well, doers. We're going to be able to see that the table manufactured with pricey components costs a total of $110. Ouch. That is a lot of dollars basically right there. Now, when we check back at the table's product form over here, I see that the product cost has been updated to $95. Now, how did Odoo come up with this number? And that's kind of the interesting thing. Well, this is very important. The first table cost $80 to make, and the second table cost $110. Now, you divide the sum of the costs by 2 to get the average cost of $95. Odoo did the math for us, friends, so we don't have to. And it's also important here, doers, the average cost is updated automatically every time an MO is processed. Now, this feature also applies to components, which I also have categorized under average cost. And there you have it. That's how you know how to evaluate the average cost of manufactured products. For more information on the standard price and FIFO costing methods in this case, be sure to check out the next 2 videos. Now, see you next time, doers. Go grab a snack. Hello, doers. My name is Jose Ignacio. Welcome back. In this video, we'll be discussing how to use the standard price costing method. This video is part 3 of my 4-part series on evaluating production costs. Links to the other 2 videos are going to be inside of the description. Now, the standard price costing method is often used for production planning purposes, or in situations where actual costs of goods aren't well defined, and an estimate is more appropriate to use. This makes for more straightforward inventory management and better cost control at a high level. In Odoo, the product cost for standard price comes from straight out of the products, actually. Therefore, the cost of components for the finished product must be updated manually on the product form. Now, in this tutorial, I'll be making 2 tables using differently priced components. We'll see that the product at the end will actually stay the same as far as costs are concerned, unlike other costing methods. And lastly, we'll update costs from the bottom up. That means updating the component cost first to reflect the accurate cost of the finished product. Let's show you some started from the bottom, now we're here action right now. We'll begin on the overview report for our final product, which is the table. So to get there, we're actually going to go into inventory, product page, and select our table. Now, once that we're inside of here, you want to select this bill of materials smart button, and we're going to select it. And finally, for our last step, we're going to select this overview smart button up here. Boom, there we have it. Now, reflected inside of this BOM overview is 4 table legs that we have, and a single tabletop with costs at the $10 and $5 a leg over here, making for $20 total. And over here, we can see that the product costs on this report correspond to the costs listed on the product forms as well. And that's kind of handy. And there's an important note here, and that is that the BOM overview includes the cost of goods and the cost to operate work centers as well. It does not factor in labor costs. Please remember that. Now, both the finished product and components follow the standard price method defined in the product category. But how do we define that product category? Well, let's click on our table again, directly from here, because Odoo is that intuitive always. All right, now look at that. We've actually already set the field over here that we have, which is the product category. And in our case, this is standard and finished good. Then when we select that internal link over here, it takes us to a lot more information. Now, under the inventory valuation, you guessed it right there. You can actually see that. We can confirm the costing method is set to standard price here. Now, let's actually go back to the BOM overview through the breadcrumbs, which today is a croissant for my people who like croissants. So we're back over there, bill of materials. And there we have it. Now, you also might notice that for this, actually, we're going to go back over to the overview fully. Sorry about that, Odooers. You'll also notice that the product cost itself is actually $0 listed. But why is that? That's because that is the default for new products that don't yet have an assigned cost. In this case, I want my table's product cost to be the sum of the components and the operational cost. Now, how would I update the cost of finished products when using standard price? Well, I'll tell you when we go to the table's product form once again. And as you can tell here, what are we going to do, Odooers? And this is actually going to apply the BOM cost as the cost of the table. Because if you see over there, the compute price from the BOM, we're going to do that right there. And we're going to select it. Boom. Immediately, we have a price. Now, that is a useful button, Odooers. And with that, the costs are all set here. Alrighty, Odooers, since I've shown you this flow in previous videos, I actually made an MO ahead of time just to speed things up. And to speed things up, I've already confirmed it and applied everything. Now, the same as before, the green forecast meant that I had essentially enough to produce a single table. And if we go to the work orders tab, you'll see that I set the expected duration to be a full hour. This ensures that the hourly labor and machinery costs are accounted for, even though only the machinery costs are used. Then, once that everything is complete and we look at this over here through a cost analysis report, you'll see that the total cost per unit over here has actually been updated to $80 total to make the finished product. $30 to buy the components, which we have up here as the total cost of components. And then finally, our cost of operations at $50, which is the cost that it essentially costs us to operate our machinery at assembly line 1. It's a very expensive place. Now, if you remember earlier, this was actually set to 0 before, but finally we have a cost set up, and we're going to talk further about a few other things. And now let me illustrate what happens when I manufacture a table using more expensive components. So back inside of manufacturing, we're going to select new, and in our case, we're going to create an MO again, and it's for that same table that we love. And once that everything looks good, you'll actually notice something immediately. Oh no, we actually don't have enough components. And you can see that immediately by the red not available reserve thing that we have over here. It's basically telling us we don't have it. But don't worry, Odooers. I can easily order components by going out of here into the inventory app. And in our case, where do we go, Odooers? We go into operations and replenishment. If you haven't watched that video, please watch that video. And finally, we need to talk about what we need. Now, if you see over here, the to order and the forecast columns have been updated with the demand according to the MO I just confirmed. I'll select the components that I need in our case, which is this one and this one, and I'm going to select order over here. Boom, we're done. It was just that easy. Now, let's say that the component costs have been fluctuating a lot in our case. Everything is getting more expensive these days. They don't tell you why, but it just is that way. We go over here and we look at our purchase order for this. Let's assume that this time around, our unit prices have actually been fluctuating a lot. In fact, they're actually now double. So what used to cost 5 is now the number 10. And what used to cost 10 is now the number 20. And we're basically done here. We're going to confirm this. It's so much more expensive. We're receiving our expensive goods. And finally, we are validating and applying this. Great. We have everything and it cost us an arm and a leg. In this case, it literally did. So here's where things get spicy. So grab a drink and start by making sure that you are in developer mode. If you don't know what that is, please check out our documentation on how to enter it, or please watch a tutorial on that as well, Odooers. Now, once you have that set up, go into inventory, reporting, valuation, and over here, we're going to group these by product. And finally, we're going to open up the two that we've been talking about, which is the SGD table. Actually, not the table, sorry. Actual Odoopsy. We're going to open up the table legs and the tabletop. All right, beautiful. Now, once you have these all set up, you'll notice something. Wait a minute. The components are valued according to their original prices at $5 a table leg, if you recall earlier, and $10 a tabletop. Remember I paid double the price for them? Excuse me, but is that also another Odoopsy? No. Actually, Odoo is always right. Since we set the valuation method of our components to standard price, they will always be valued according to the cost stated on the product form, regardless actually of how much we got price gouged by vendors. But let's take a look at that a little bit further. Forgetting about that for a bit, let's complete the MO and see how the production costs are calculated. So inside of the manufacturing app, you want to head over here to operations, manufacturing orders. There it is again. Now, in our case, because the components were restocked, the reserve component status icon itself over here is actually green now because we have enough. Now let's go over here to our work orders tab and set the expected duration now, which was 60, also to the real duration at 60. Perfect. Now that that's all set up, let's mark this as done and hit apply, and boom, we're done. All right, now let's check that cost analysis report again by clicking on cost analysis. And when we go in there, you'll notice the finished product cost is, again, it's still $80. The product and the operational costs are still the same, which follows the standard price costing method. This means that this cost is always listed on the product form. When we check back to the table's product form by clicking over here, go over here to table. And there we are. Actually, there it is right there. As you can tell, it's still $80. Calculated using the standard component cost of $5 per leg and $10 per tabletop. All right, now for our final section, let's say that our company has reevaluated its purchase reports and wants to update the product cost itself. We're actually going to go up here to products. And you guessed it, in our case, we're going to go to BOM. And we're going to go to that table itself. All right, so once that we're here, it's important to note that the process of manually updating costs should be done from the bottom up. Now, what does that mean? Remember, in order to make sure that the cost of the finished product accurately reflects the new component cost, we need to update the components themselves first. Then we can use the compute price from BOM button to accurately calculate the updated product cost. All right, so to update the component cost to the more expensive prices, we actually need to go to the individual component product forms. So we're going to first select, in our case, the table legs. All right, they are 5 right now. We're going to manually change this to 10. Now we're going to go back. We're going to go to the tabletop's internal link as well. And this one, as you guessed it, is now 20. And we're going to go back over here. All right, once that you are finished with all of that, what do you need to do? Well, if you go over here to the overview report, you'll notice it actually changed right now. It's been updated and the BOM costs have been updated to 110 compared to the 80 from earlier. Next, we want to update the product cost. So we'll click on the table's product form. In our case, through the little breadcrumbs. All right, there we are. And in our case, we select the table right there with that little internal link. And finally, this is when we get to actually click this. So we're going to compute. And look at that. Boom. the cost to manufacture table is updated to reflect the cost of the components. And that's beautiful. And there you have it, doers. Every manufacturing order hereafter will use these costs, and they will be reflected on both the BOM overview and the cost analysis of MOs. That's it for this video. For more information on the FIFO costing method, be sure to check out the next video. See you next time, doers. Go grab a snack, and if no one's told you this, you're doing great today. Hello, doers. My name is Jose Ignacio. Welcome back to the final boss of the costing series, the first in, first out costing method, aka FIFO. Today, we'll be jumping between a wombo combo of apps, so get ready to continue growing your knowledge. FIFO manufacturing is like waiting in line. In a workshop, products are manufactured and stored in a specific order. The stuff that gets made first are sent out for sale first, and then the next items in line are basically delivered next. Now, here's the interesting part. So the FIFO costing method pools the cost of the oldest manufactured item in stock and uses it to determine the product cost. So right now, the cost to make a table is $110. But once that product is removed from the stock, the next oldest manufactured product determines the cost. Now, FIFO is straightforward to use and has been useful to update fluctuating product costs. In this video, you'll see how FIFO works when we produce two tables constructed with the same components, but bought at different prices. So, enough chit-chat. Let's get started right now. First, to check the value and the quantity of the components I have in stock, let's go to the inventory valuation report. Now, firstly, you're going to want to have developer mode on, otherwise you won't see it. I'm going to quickly show you where you would find that. We're going to go into settings, down at the bottom under developer tools. If you don't see this, it might be related to access rights. For more information on that, please check out the documentation. Otherwise, let's make our way over to inventory, reporting, valuation, and there we have it. All right, let me show you basically a couple tips. Now, first, we want to group this by the product, and that'll make it a whole lot nicer and easier to see. And then another thing that I could show you is a quick tip while we're here. If you click this favorites filter right there, save the current search. You could change the name if you'd like. We're going to use that by default and hit save. Perfect. Now, whenever we open this up, it'll default us to the nicer view right there, which makes it a lot easier. Now, we're going to look for the FIFO components. We have our table, which currently doesn't have a value or anything moved, our table legs, and our tabletop. You see the nested table legs and tabletops with their actual respective values over here. Now, right now, the components we have in stock are 4 table legs for a total of $20 and 1 tabletop for $10. These are to manufacture my first table, which we'll do now. Now, before I go, remember those two values, $20, 4 legs, $10, 1 tabletop. As we go through the flow, Oda will update my components' prices over here in the terms of the valuation as I process manufacturing orders, which we will come back to later at some point. So remember that. All right, I'll begin making my first table. So we're going to go into the manufacturing app, operations, and manufacturing orders. And now to prepare to build one, we can select new up here. And what product did we want? We want that FIFO table. All right, everything here initially looks pretty good. And the table is already added, so we can now click confirm. Beautiful. We can see that this manufacturing order will use 4 table legs and 1 tabletop eventually in the to consume field over here. Now we'll click on the work orders tab, and we're going to type in right now that I spent 60 minutes working on this. Very hard worker. We're going to log that time, and we can easily adjust the time spent on a manufacturing order right here. All right, now that we're done with everything, we're going to hit mark as done, and we're going to apply this. And we're going to finish everything manufacturing. Now, if you want to review the cost analysis of the ammo, all you have to do is click that smart button I've been showing you. Give that a second to load, and it'll tell us everything. So right now, we can see that the table costs $80 total to make because it used $30 under the cost of components plus $50 of operational costs for the assembly line that we have right here. And we'll show you what that means now. All right, for the next table, I'll use more expensive components. So here's a Jose Ignacio quick tip to help save time. We're going to go back to the MO using the breadcrumbs, which today is Wonder Bread because all of you are wonderful. We're going to hit duplicate. Boom, we've got our draft set up, and we're going to make the same table, and now we're going to finally confirm it. With the new MO confirmed, we see that we need to order more components. Oh no, it's red and not available. Well, let's pause this, go out of here, and we need to restock. So in our case, we're going to go into inventory. And what do we need to do, oh doers? We need to replenish. We're going to go into replenishment. We can see that our components appear in the replenishment report, and it's that convenient, oh doers. Let's select the boxes next to the stuff that we need. And then what do? Well, we just got to hit oh doers. Or doers. That's a terrible joke. With the PO created, let's finish ordering components inside of the purchase app. So we're going to go back over here into purchase. We're going to find the one that we need for today, which happens to be right there. There's our replenishment report. Now, let's say that due to a shortage of lumber, we had to buy from the greedy giant and he doubled the price of our components. So we're going to change the unit price of each of these. These are now $10. These are $20. Oh no, that is very sad and now I want to cry. Nothing we could do about that. So we'll go ahead and confirm the order. Receive our products. And now we're finally done with all our parts over here. And also we got to validate this before I forget, oh doers, and apply. With all our parts, let's get back to our manufacturing. So let's go back to our table. So we're going to go inside of the manufacturing app. Operations, manufacturing orders, the most recent one. All right, there we are. Now you'll see that the component status field has been updated and everything is there. So let's go back over here and lie about working a full hour right now. And we're basically done. We're going to mark as done and again, hit apply. All right, we're almost done. I promise you. Let's check the cost analysis report again now this time. And you'll see that it's a more expensive table. Now it's $110 due to the more expensive components that we use, nearly doubling. Can't do anything about it. All right, now we'll see though, however, if we go back over here and we check all of this, what ended up happening though? Well, we can see that the cost, if we click on the actual table itself, is still $80 per unit. Now, why is this? Well, when we check our overview report for the table, which you can do using the Bill of Materials smart button up here and checking it inside of here. And now finally, I almost forget, we actually want to see this overview report right there. We can actually see that even though the BOM cost has been updated to $110, the actual product cost follows the cost of the earliest manufactured product that we have in stock, which is that first table at $80. And isn't that interesting? But let's see what happens when we sell off the first product we manufactured, the $80 table. Our customer Mark is super excited to get one of our awesome tables because they're awesome. So we'll just navigate over to the sales app because we'd like to sell something. And we're going to make a new quotation. And who did I just say is buying this? Well, I said Mark is buying it. So there's Mark. All right, we're going to sell him one of our FIFO tables. So we'll find that out. All right, everything looks good here. So once that we're done, we're going to confirm this. And finally, when the delivery order is processed, which in our case, we click on the delivery, validate, immediate transfer and apply. I want to show you something. The $80 table will be removed from stock, which we can see in the inventory valuation report, which if we go out of here and go back into inventory, reporting, valuation, and finally, here we go to our FIFO section. You'll notice immediately. Remember the valuations for the table legs and the tabletop from before? Since we sold off the last table to Mark and purchased the more expensive components, those values have actually changed accordingly. Notice, instead of what we had before, now we actually have it set to $40 because of the changes for the table legs. And finally, $20 for the actual top now. And when we click on the actual FIFO table dropdown, you noticed immediately the first table was taken out at the $80 and the $110 one is right below it as well. The table delivered to Mark is the first $80 one. We're actually going to click on that row just so that I could take you over here to the order and so that I could show you something immediately. And basically, if we click on that little product form over here, what does that cost say now, oh doers?
And here we arrive on the table's product form, which tells us the product cost is automatically updated to the cost of the next earliest manufactured product that we have on hand, which happens to be $110 now instead of the $80. How cool. All right, so that's how FIFO works, so doers. Thanks for sticking through to the end of this costing series. Hopefully you found a costing method that works for you, and if you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments, send me an email, smash that like, I don't know, everything. For more manufacturing videos and everything else Odoo, be sure to check out the description below, and as always, remember, I'll see you next time.
Hello, doers, and welcome back. Today we're going to discuss how to use the Master Production Schedule, or MPS for my acronym lovers, so that you can pump up your company's planning capabilities to the max. The Master Production Schedule is a long-term planning tool that gives you a bird's eye view of your overall production. It's based on your company's aggregate plan, but requires additional inputs like the demand forecast, inventory levels, and customer orders. In return, the Master Production Schedule provides you with the quantity you need to produce, the remaining inventory, and the overall amount of product you can promise to customers. When set up correctly, the MPS prepares you for fluctuations in demand so that you can prevent stockouts, perform effective cost control, and plan your company's cash inflow. MPS is also helpful for dealing with seasonal products. If we use models to help us forecast peak demand periods, the MPS can help us plan our manufacturing, taking production capacity and lead times into account. Here at Stealthywood, we also work with seasonal products, like winter holiday decorations. And if you're like me, you know it's never too early to start decorating for the holidays. So, enough chit-chat, let's go make our house look spooky and very festive. First things first, let's quickly review the bill of materials or BOM for our Christmas painting by going up here to Products, Bill of Materials, and selecting it. Now, I can see that it's made up of a frame, backing board, and printed canvas. Now, that's easy enough. We also need to make sure that we've activated the Master Production Schedule itself by going up to Configuration and Settings. Underneath the Planning section, make sure that little checkbox next to Master Production Schedule is checked off and save your settings. Great. While we're here, we also have the option to choose what time range over here that we want to view in our MPS, as well as the number of columns. For now, I'm going to keep the default settings, which will show us 12 months. Now to go view that MPS, we're going to select Planning and Master Production Schedule. Great, but it's blank. So first, you need to add the products to schedules that you want to plan out. So select Add a Product. Let's go with that Christmas painting again. Now we also have the option to select the bill of materials. I filled it out. What happens if you don't? If you leave this field blank, the MPS will only show the product and not the BOM itself. Now here I can also define Safety Stock Target, which is the extra inventory we can keep to prevent a stock out. I can also indicate the minimum and the maximum values to replenish. For now, I'm going to leave these all as they are and just hit save. Great, stuff has appeared now. And now we can see the forecast for the painting as well as all of its components over here. Now by default, the following fields are displayed. We have the forecasted demand, which is the estimated future demand for a product. We also have the suggested replenishment, which tells us how much of a product we should order to keep up with demand. And finally, we have forecasted stock, which tells us how much inventory we should keep to keep up with that demand as well. Everything right now is 0 because we haven't set up a forecasted demand yet. For each product, I can actually adjust the safety stock target or minimum and maximum replenishment quantities whenever I want to. All I have to do is hit this little target across from forecasted stock and a pop-up appears over here. I can adjust it to my liking. But for right now, I'm going to hit cancel on that. Now, clicking on over here where we have the unequal or less than sign above it takes us to the same exact pop-up. So we're going to cancel that out too. Now, finally, if I have a lot of products visible on the MPS and I want to view just one of them, I can simply search for it by typing in something like, let's see the frame over here. And boom, there it is. All right, now that we've reviewed the default settings, it's time to get crazy over here. Let's add some of those additional fields to this bad boy. Now, the way we do that, by clicking on rows that we have right there, and now we can add some of them. Now, right here, we have the actual demand, which is based on confirmed sales orders. So when we check actual demand, it'll show as a fraction of the forecasted demand value. Now, let's say that I want to view the last year's actual demand. So we're going to do actual demand, Y1 over there. Boom, this generates a new row containing last year's demand. And then over here, we have the actual replenishment that we have right there. And what does that do? Well, it provides us replenishment values based on confirmed RFQs along with manufacturing orders. So when we have that option there, boom, we have it. And now it displays as a fraction of the suggested replenishment. And then finally, we have available to promise over here. And that is the quantity of products we can sell at the end of a period. When we check it, look at that. It can be viewed as well as a fraction of the forecasted stock on the same page. Phew. All right. That was a lot of info, I know. So why don't we enter actual values into the MPS and see how that magic works? So the first value we'll want to define for each month is the forecasted demand, since the MPS is based on forecasted and actual demands. Now the forecasted demand has to be entered manually, but this is a seasonal product, so we only got to do a couple months. So I'm loosely going to base my estimates on last year's actual demand. So starting with November over here, we had 800. Then we had 950. Somehow 1,000. And finally, it goes down again at 900. A lot of stuff happened when I did that. Now you'll notice that these forecasted demand values for the final product will affect the indirect demand forecast for each of my components. So I don't need to manually forecast everything, which is super handy. And in this case, the ratio of each component to the finished product is 1-to-1. So the demand values are directly proportional, as you could tell when we have the 800 there, and then each of them is also there. Great. Now, the suggested replenishment value that we have up here has also been populated automatically. And since I don't have any products or components in stock, it's going to be the same as the forecasted demand right above it. If I want to change the suggested replenishment value manually, I can actually just do that by changing it in here. Let's assume that this was actually 950. Oh no, would you look at that? When I click away, an X button shows up and it tells me, it gives me the option to reset this to what it actually was in case I had butterfingers. Now, the available to promise value is, you guessed it, also calculated automatically. And it equals the replenishment minus the actual demand. Okay, now that we understand what the MPS values mean and everything, let's move on to replenishment. When I hover the word replenish over here, look at that, Odooers. Odoo highlights the earliest cell that needs replenishment. When I click on replenishment, boom, it applies the actual replenishment. The cell has now turned gray since the suggested and actual replenishment values are equivalent. When I hover it again, now this time it's showing me the next earliest month, December. Now this time, let's see what happens when I replenish more than is required by the demand. So we're going to hit 1,000 in here instead of 950. Now, when I hit replenish and click on that X, would you look at that? The cell turns red since we replenish more than the originally suggested quantity. Now for the next month, let's see what happens when I replenish less than the suggested quantity. So for this one, we're going to put 900 right there. Boom. Look at that, Odooers. If I click away, you'll notice that my forecasted stock is now negative relative to the forecasted demand, which means I'm replenishing too little over here, Odooers. Now for the purpose of this example, I'm going to click replenish anyway on that one. And then when we hit the X, look at that. The cell is now yellowy orange because the actual replenishment is less than suggested right there. All right, one more thing and then we're done. If I want to look at my actual replenishment documents, all I have to do is click on the bolded number that represents the actual replenishment right there. If we click over here, we see we have 800 of these manufacturing orders. And look at that. They are all at this point confirmed. And what does that mean, Odooers? Well, if we go back over here to the master production schedule, I'll talk about that. Now, the process of determining and applying replenishment values for components is the same as the final product. For example, let's look at, in our case, we have the frame component that we had over here. If we click over here to the actual replenishment button, and then we select the value, in this case, we have 800 RFQs. And I'll see that that's because we purchased the frames instead of manufacturing them. Now, for this to work, you'll need to have a vendor set up on the component's product form as well. So make sure that you have that. And finally, if a component is manufactured instead of purchased, its replenishment document will be a manufacturing order, but everything follows the same general flow of logic. These MOs and everything, as you guessed it, will either be in an RFQ or a confirm stage in the case of MOs. And that's it. Now you know how to use the master production schedule in Odoo's manufacturing app. Now it's time to use this to your advantage and become a production scheduling master. Anyways, as always, Odooers, thanks for watching. This one was pretty complex, so go grab yourself a snack.
Hello, Odooers, and welcome back. There is a key element we shouldn't overlook in Stealthywood's manufacturing process: the overall equipment effectiveness, also known as OEE. OEE is the gold standard for measuring a company's manufacturing productivity. But why do we use OEE in a small to medium enterprise like Stealthy Wood? The reason is simple. OEE helps us identify the percentage of truly productive manufacturing time across my work centers. Identifying productivity losses helps me pinpoint areas for improvement, making operations more efficient and cost-effective. OEE can lead to a significant return on investment, especially when we launch a new product. After all, making sure that existing equipment is being used efficiently reduces the amount of money we need to spend to meet our production needs. Keeping an eye on the overall equipment effectiveness is vital for when trying to reach a company's true potential. So let's see how we can take advantage of it in Odoo. At first, OEE might seem difficult to understand and compute. Luckily, Odoo calculates and records these values automatically. That means that the complicated steps are taken care of in the background while the regular production operations continue like normal. This is very convenient since not everyone is an expert in manufacturing. So let's hop into the manufacturing application where I have a dashboard overview of my work centers. As you can see, there's an OEE field with a percentage for each of my active work centers. Right now, the OEE percentage for each work center is in green, which indicates that the work centers are meeting their targets. If the OEE drops below the target, then the number will turn red. For example, I can change the OEE target for this work center to be greater than its current OEE by clicking on the three dots on the top right and clicking on Settings. Under Product Information in the OEE target field, let's change it to 100. Let's see what happens when I go back to the dashboard via the breadcrumbs. And now the percentage is red, since my team didn't reach the OEE target that I set. But let's cut my team some slack, since we don't expect the work center to operate at 100% efficiency. So let's change it back to 90. I can learn more about my work center's production statistics when I click on the work center's OEE button. This helps me identify factors that are affecting the work center's effectiveness. For example, we can see that this work center, Drill Station 1, has been doing really well with its fully productive time, with just a small portion of the total time being taken up by reduced speed. If I want to access an overall OEE report for all of my work centers, I can go to the reporting subheading at the top and click on Overall Equipment Effectiveness. By default, this view is grouped by work center and loss reason. I can even remove some of the sections from view. This is a great method for visually gauging efficiency. For example, let's click on the fully productive time at the top of the graph. To further understand OEE and how it's computed, let's see how it changes when it takes longer than expected to manufacture a product. I'll start by opening an MO for a wood panel that's already confirmed. So let's go to the Operations subheading and click on Manufacturing Orders and select the wood panel MO. Then I'll go to the Work Orders tab, and in the drill operation, in the real duration field, let's change it to 80. That's 20 minutes longer than the expected duration of 60 minutes, which was set on the Operations tab in the wood panel's bill of materials. Okay, let's head back to the manufacturing dashboard by clicking on the Overview menu at the top. And would you look at that, Odooers? Odoo has automatically calculated a new OEE, which has been instantly impacted from 95% to 93%. When I click on the OEE link, I can see that the work center's fully productive time has decreased by just a smidge due to an increase in the reduced speed. If I click on the reduced speed pie chart segment, I'm shown a list of every time the loss reason occurred. If I want, I also have the option to manually create and report a loss reason. So let's go ahead and click New. Let's say I experienced a material availability issue that wasn't immediately reflected on the work order. So in the loss reason field, let's select Material Availability. As promised, everything related to the OEE calculation is automatically handled by Odoo based on the actions that the employees record during the manufacturing process. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hello, doers. You ever waited so long for a package you forgot you ordered it? Like when I waited 2 years for my Cat Atlantis keycaps? And I was so over them by that time, so I have these ones now. Now you see, at Stealthywood, we take control and we avoid production delays by scheduling orders based on production and delivery times. By accurately estimating delivery times, we ensure that the parts arrive just as we need them, and manufacturing orders are completed just in time for shipping. Now this not only eliminates the need to keep parts and finished products in stock, but it keeps us efficient, because to put it simply, a lead time is the amount of calendar days that it takes for a process to be completed from start to finish. Now there are lots of different types of lead times, including customer lead times, which it's the number of days between when the product is ordered and when it's left the warehouse, basically. Now remember, doers, this is actually important here. Now, whenever we're talking about customer lead time, we're referring to the delivery lead time. And next, we have manufacturing lead time, or the number of days it actually takes us to build a product. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you a cool new feature inside of Odoo called Days to Prepare Manufacturing Order. Now, with it, we'll know when we need to order necessary parts. They are mini deadlines and reminders that help us finish manufacturing on time. Now, let's start clickety-clacking away at the essence of logistics. All right, so let's begin on the manufacturing app, and we're going to take a quick look at the sturdy table that I'm selling. Now, we can find it by going up here to products, and selecting sturdy table. Perfect, we're here at the product form. Now to start, and this is important, we define the manufacturing lead time on the product form. So we'll also click on the inventory tab, and you'll find the manufacturing lead time field located in the logistics section over here. In our case, we're going to say that it takes us 5 days to build a sturdy table. Now, the customer lead time below here is the time between when a customer places an order and when we ship our sturdy table out. We're using the 0-0 reordering rule to replenish our stock and plan when to begin manufacturing. So we can estimate that the whole process takes us 2 weeks, 14 days. Now, again, this is also known as the delivery lead time. And if you don't believe me, hover these little question marks. They always give you small little information and bits of stuff. All right, next, let's check on the 0-0 reordering rule configs by clicking on the reordering rule smart button up here. Beautiful. All right, now 0-0 is a nickname for a reordering rule where the minimum and the max quantity are both set to 0 in this case. Now, this means that we don't want to keep any finished table or its components in stock, but we'll start manufacturing one when a customer places an order. So what happens if a customer cancels that order? Well, Odoo stores that table and seeks to deplete it when someone else orders it, bringing the max quantity again to 0. Now, the same goes for the opposite. When a customer orders a sturdy table, the forecasted quantity over here turns to -1, which is a signal for Odoo to reorder and bring the number back to 0. With how 0-0 works in mind, here's a Jose quick tip. Click on this awesome little eye, and that'll take you to a lead time breakdown to get a better idea of when we can expect the finished product, which is a forecasted date. But like with all things such as forecasts on the replenishment info page calculate estimated dates based on lead time values from the product form and global security lead times. And then they output those estimated date values in calendar days, meaning they don't take work center working time into account. Now, let's tackle days to supply components. So let's take a look at the bill of materials, or BOM for my acronym lovers, for the sturdy table. So we're going to go back over here and select our bill of materials smart button, and we're going to go right in there. Beautiful. Now we'll notice that the parts needed to build the table are the table legs and the large wood planks. But next, let's click on this overview. And would you look at that? Currently, the availability column for both the sturdy table and the table legs is showing not available because we haven't properly set up the purchase lead time for the table leg component actually. So let's take a look at the table legs directly from the table. Now, if we do that, that'll actually open up the product form. And then we're going to switch on over here to purchase. And there's our problem. We don't have a default vendor. In our case, we're going to use the one that we've been working with a lot. And they sell it to us for $5. And our delivery lead time is 4 days. All right. Beautiful. Everything is set up. Manual cloud save up here. Okay. So if we go back to the BOM overview, in our case, using the breadcrumbs, which today are sourdough. Look at that. It went from not available to giving us estimated dates. And that's because now that the lead time for the table legs is set up, the report has been updated with an availability for both of them. And it tells us the exact estimated date that we anticipate finishing manufacturing the table. Beautiful. So based on the lead time set previously that we have over here, the earliest date we'll have the finished product is in 9 days. Now that's because even if we ordered the components today, the large wood plank comes in 2 days and the table legs come in 4 days. And I'd also like to make a quick note that the component with the longest lead time is used to calculate the days to prepare manufacturing order. And I'm going to show you what that means. So in our case, we're actually going to go back to the sturdy table product page using the breadcrumbs. And it's the leftmost one at this point. All right, now that we're here in the logistics area, you'll notice we could either manually select days to prepare manufacturing order or compute. And boom, would you look at that? Beautiful. It pulls 4 days, which was the longest lead time to manufacture or purchase the components from the BOM. Now, this is helpful when you have tons of components and lead times. And now I'm going to show you a quick summary of all of that. All right, so in summary, the 14-day customer lead time is a default timeline for producing a sturdy table. 5 days from when we've placed a sales order, we get an alert on the replenishment report to create a manufacturing order. Now, this triggers 00 to get our parts from the vendor, which arrives on the 9th day, June 1st. Now, this date is also the scheduled date on the MO, which is the last day to begin manufacturing the sturdy table to ship it on time on June 6th, though, doers. But let's see how this works when we create a sales order for a different product, our driftwood table, which has all of the lead time set up exactly like the sturdy table we were working on earlier. All right, so here we are, and we're going to make a new quotation. And in this case, our customer Tom Hanks wants to order 1 driftwood table because he cast away his last one. Perfect. Driftwood table, and we are all set. All right. Now, Tom Hanks, while we're determining the delivery date, tells us, hey, I really don't want to wait even 1 extra day. I'm anticipating my first meal with Wilson on this table. Let's not disappoint him. In our 14-day timeline for our regular customers, we don't even order components until the 5th day. Skipping all of the waiting, we'll use the BOM overview to give him an estimate of the soonest available table. So we're going to go directly using our internal link just for him because we're trying to be very kind. Bill of materials in there and overview. All right. Now, boom. The date's right there. The finished table will be ready in 7 days, 2 days earlier than the forecasted date I showed you before. And that's because I have all of the table legs in stock. So I only need to wait 2 days to prepare the other components as well. Combined, we get 5 days to manufacture the table over here using the lead times. And then we can finish it in 7 days. Now this report can give accurate time estimates for different quantities as well. Now, if Tom wanted, let's say, another table, and we click up here and we do 2, you'll see something else happens now. The forecasted date is updated now to show us a longer time because we'd have to wait the full 4 days for Vintage Goods to ship the table legs. So we promised Tom that he will receive his table 11 days from now. The estimated date, May 30th, on the BOM overview tells us we can ship the table out of our workshop in 7 days. We only need 2 days to procure components and 5 days to manufacture. We checked the distance from our workshop in San Francisco to Tom's location and verbally told him to expect the package on June 3rd, 4 days from the estimated date. Then, if we go back over here to the sales order, now in this new one, we go inside of other info, down here to delivery dates. And we're going to set this to 7 days from today. Perfect. And would you look at that? Remember, the delivery date is the day you're planning to ship the finished product out of your workshop. We'll get an alert since we set the product to deliver sooner than the 14 days we set on the customer lead time, shown as the expected date down below. But we can actually just ignore it because you doers have the power. Now we can save, confirm this, and we're done. Boom. Since we set our driftwood table with the 00 reordering rule, the need will show up on the replenishment page inside of our inventory app. Go to operations up here, replenishment. And there we are, doers. Now with this to reorder filter up here, we only see tasks that need to be done. And this one needs to be done right now. So let's reorder by selecting order once. And what did that just do, doers? Well, Odoo generates a manufacturing order for us. Would you look at that? Let's hop in there. And looking into this on the MO to build 1 driftwood table, we could see the scheduled date is 3 days from now since we need 2 days to get the component. And would you look at that? We have a purchase order. Since we set up the 00 reordering rules for the components, Odoo automatically creates POs for the components that we're missing.
Now, as you'll see, the order deadline is tomorrow, but we're just going to order it in our case because we need it ASAP. And if we head back over here to our manufacturing order, you'll finally see that in yellow over here that the large wood planks are expected in 3 days. Now the scheduled date is still indicating the latest start time for the production to ensure on-time delivery. Since we already ordered the components, we can begin building once they arrive, so we're on track to finish before the May 30th deadline. Beautiful, Odooers, and there you have it. Odoo makes estimating dates and planning productions easy, while 00 gives you a comprehensive view of scheduled dates to ensure timely manufacturing. Now check out our other videos on planning and the master production schedule coming out soon for more scheduling features. Goodbye for now, Odooers. Go grab a snack, and if no one's told you today, you're doing great. These are hard. All right, hello, Doers. My name is Jose Ignacio, and welcome back. Now, here at Stealthywood, our business is expanding, especially in the morning. Now, our manufacturers are eager to build products, and the procurement team has to make sure they have everything they need for the day. So today, we'll discuss replenishment methods. Now, since there's so much to do, how can we reduce all of the tedious and time-consuming tasks that surround procurement? Well, inside of Odoo, we use a specific method for automatic reordering, which we call reordering rules. Now, in manufacturing, we want to ensure our components are in stock to avoid unnecessary production delays. We can skip having to manually check which components are running low and instead use reordering rules to automatically create purchase orders. It's beautiful. Now, when you set up reordering rules, Odoo performs a series of procurement operations automatically based on the logic you give it for the product or the groups of products. Now, how it works is when inventory levels drop beneath a certain threshold, Odoo automatically creates a request for quotations, or RFQs for my acronym lovers. Now, Odoo also lets you use reordering rules to automate the creation of manufacturing orders from a sales order. I'll explain how to configure this at the end of the video as well. So, enough chit chat, let's hop into our Stealthywood database. All right, Odooers, let's start by setting up reordering rules for a wood panel component. Now, first, let's take a look at the bill of materials for the wood panel. So we're going to head into manufacturing app, products, bill of materials, wood panel. Now, we can see that the wood panel consists of 3 ply layers and a wear layer. Now, we manufacture a lot of wood panels at Stealthywood, so I want to automate the ordering process for its components using reordering rules. Now, I can set up reordering rules directly on the product itself, and in our case, I already configured a reordering rule for my wear layer, so we're all good right there. But let's see one set up for my ply layer. So I'm actually going to go into the ply layer product form by clicking right onto it through this little direct link. An important thing to note here, before I set up any actual reordering rules, I need to designate a vendor on the purchase tab of the product template. Now, since we need to let Odoo know who to purchase from, it's very helpful and required. So in our case, once that you're there, you can actually see that I have a few vendors already set up, and I can add more if I wanted to. And if I want, I can also change the order by clicking and dragging them up and down. Now, another thing to keep in mind, the order of these vendors actually matters. With reordering rules, Odoo will automatically create requests for quotations to the vendor placed at the top of the list. In our case, Wood Corner. Now that we know at least one vendor is selected and listed, let's go ahead and set up our reordering rule. So we're going to select our smart button. We're going to go right in there. Now here I can set a minimum and maximum quantities. These values tell Odoo how much of a component we want to keep in stock and when to create a request for quotation. So in our case, we're going to do 10 and 100. And this looks good. Now, I also want to note that you can view and create reordering rules in the inventory app under the configuration menu instead of just going through the product form. Now, this is helpful for keeping track of all of the reordering rules that are set up since they can be seen and managed in one place. All right, up next, let's see what happens when we create an MO for our wood panel. So we're going to go back into our manufacturing app, operations menu, manufacturing orders, new one, follow me here. And we're going to do this wood panel and we're going to confirm it. Now, what just happened, Odooers? Well, Odoo lets us know when the components are unavailable with these red not available forecast icons. I don't like them. Now, since we are out of stock, let's head to the purchase app to see if an RFQ has been created from our reordering rules. So we can go back over here and into purchase. There we go. Beautiful, Odoers. You can see what, Odoers, that the quantity ordered reflects the maximum quantity we set on our reordering rules, while also taking the manufacturing order's demand into account. Now we want to have what? We wanted to have 100 pieces in stock of each component, but we used 3 ply layers and 1 wear layer in our current manufacturing order. So what did Odoo do? It ordered 103 and 101 because math, Odoers. Now, while Odoo automatically generates an RFQ for us, we still have to manually confirm the order, receive the products into our inventory, and also validate it. Now, for the purposes of this video, in our case, we're going to go ahead and do that since we have the fastest vendors and procurement team in town. Really, Odoers, they're lightning fast. In fact, they just confirm it, receive it, and validate it. And we're going to follow this Dutch Crunch breadcrumbs back to the MO, and look at that. We have enough raw materials now, Odoers. Beautiful. Okay. Now I want to show you a nifty trick using reordering rules. We just saw how we can use reordering rules to automatically generate purchase orders, but we can also use them to create manufacturing orders whenever customers buy products that we manufacture in-house. There are a couple of different ways to automatically generate manufacturing orders from a sales order in Odoo. Now, one is by using the MTO route for manufactured products. Now, I cover this in a separate video, my MTO video, and I invite you to check it out if you haven't already. Now, we can also accomplish the same outcome by setting a reordering rule with both the minimum and max set to 0. Now, I'll use our table product as an example of how to do that. This time, I'll set up the reordering rules from the inventory app. So we're going to go into inventory. And what are we going to do there, Odoers? Well, we're going to go and look at our products. In this case, we're going to go into configuration and reordering rules. Now, I'll create a new rule for my product, the table, and define both the min and maximum, as I talked about, as a solid 0. Now, I'll double check that the manufacturer route is activated on my table's basic product form, and look at that, it is. Now, let's create a sales order because we need to see how this works in action. So we'll hop over to the sales application and make a new quotation. So while we're here, we'll do that. And let's say our customer, Azure Interior, wants to buy 1 table. We'll confirm this quotation, turning it into a sales order. Now, when we head over to the manufacturing app, and this time view our manufacturing orders, we'll see a new MO connected to our sales order was automatically created. And look at that. If we check it and look at this miscellaneous tab, boom. The source document states what? It states OP. And that stands for order point, which indicates that this MO was created as an inventory replenishment using reordering rules. Since I didn't set up any work orders for this product, all that's left to do is to mark this MO as done. And then you basically just hit apply. Now we can go back to our sales order using over here into the sales app and process the delivery. And then in this case, we'll finally hit validate and then apply the done quantities, thus completing the delivery and the sales flow. And boom, there we have it, Odoers. What a hot, fast day. Now we know how to use reordering rules to automate the procurement process to ensure that we always have parts available for manufacturing. We also reviewed how, reordering rules set to 0 to link over to sales order and into manufacturing orders as well. Oh my God, we went through so many things. Now, this reordering trick over here is also useful for managing sub-assemblies for products with multi-level BOMs. I know you can use Odoo's reordering rules to your company's advantage. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Go grab a snack.
Hello, doers. My name is Jose Ignacio. Working all day but not meeting the production manager's expectations? Well, at Stealthywood, we use Odoo to focus on efficiency so that we don't have to work unreasonable hours. Now, with manufacturing scheduling, Odoo plans tasks according to production deadlines, and it schedules when the work center is used. Now, there are 2 types of planning, and we know them. They are long-term planning and short-term planning. Now, long-term planning always happens backwards in time. For example, starting from the delivery date we agreed upon, with a client that Odoo will plan backward according to the manufacturing lead time of the product we're selling. And we'll schedule the manufacturing order date and the manufacturing order deadline as well. And this type of planning tells us when we should start the manufacturing process in order to deliver the product on time. We cover this in the From Sales to Manufacturing Order video, so be sure to check that out. And finally, short-term planning. Well, that is the focus of today's video. That focuses on the granular details of checking scheduled work orders after defining the MO scheduled date. Now, based on the scheduled date, Odoo will try and start allocating work centers according to the operation times defined in the bill of materials. So let's start clickety-clacking away at scheduling work orders to see how short-term planning is done with Odoo. Let's begin with an overview of our super popular custom keyboard. Now, as you can see, since this is a custom product, we have the Replenish on Order or MTO route selected inside of the Inventory tab. Now, you'll also see that the manufacturing lead time tells us the keyboard requires 3 days to make. And if we select the bill of materials, custom keyboard, would you look at that? We see that this product requires 4 components and 3 separate operations. I also have 3 work centers set up, each corresponding to a specific operation. Loop switches, build keyboard, put on keycaps. It's pretty simple. But let's take a look at those, shall we? So we're going to go to configuration and work centers. Let's pick one of these bad boys. There we go. Now, you'll also see that for all these work centers, I have the working hours set to the standard 40 hours work week. But what does that look like? Well, you can actually, using that internal little arrow that you saw, see a breakdown of the working hours. And they are Monday to Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. with a 1-hour break at noon. I mean, people gotta eat, right? I know I do. Anyways, Odoo will schedule work orders exclusively within these times, taking the time zone into account. Now, since you've definitely watched my previous video and left some comments about my amazing Odoo skills, let's explore Odoo's planner after creating a bunch of sales orders for manufactured products. And I'll quickly create a sales order just to show you how all of these pieces will fit together. So we're going to go out of here. We're going to go into the sales app. We're going to make a new one. And what do we want in this one? Well, we're going to sell our stuff to somebody, a key enthusiast. That's keyboard for short. Now we want to put a custom keyboard here because what else would they want? Now, inside of the other info tab, I want you to take a look at something. And that is that we can actually set the delivery time to a different date. In our case, we're going to set it 8 days from today. We can actually even get as granular as the time if we want. We can give it a time, like a very specific time if you see this little clock icon. We're going to set the time to 8 a.m. We'll do it sharp. Actually, we'll give ourselves 5 seconds. All right, 8 a.m. in 8 days. That has a nice ring to it, right? 8. And let's remember this date, August 9th, because it's important. Anyway, now that we're all set up, let's confirm the sales order. And on the confirmed order, we'll see the manufacturing order smart button up at the top. Odoo does this automatically for MTO products to help us link all of our internal documents. So let's click it, because I always like clicking these. Now, remember the scheduled shipment date that we set before? You'll see that right now is different. You'll notice the scheduled date of this MO is August 6th, 3 days prior to the delivery date. And that's perfect. But why is it that day? Now, here's where things get really cool, Odooers. Odoo uses the 3-day manufacturing lead time we set on the product form to plan backwards and determine the latest day that we can begin manufacturing this order. My nickname for this date is MO Deadline, and it's a safety switch we use to ensure that the product is finished on time. Loop switches is our first operation to assemble the custom keyboard. Now, since the manufacturing order deadline is August 6th, Odoo will schedule the first operation in an available slot at the first work center on or a little after this day. Next, Odoo schedules the next operation at the soonest slot at Work Center 2, after Operation 1 was completed. So, once that a slot at Work Center 2 is determined, Odoo will look for a 1-hour slot at Work Center 3 between the completion of Operation 2 and the delivery day. Now, the observant Odooers might have noticed that the operation times don't add up to the manufacturing lead time of 3 days. Oh no, is Jose bad at math? No, that's because we gotta consider the time taken up by other workshop operations. but I'm sure y'all already figured that out. So Odooers, by adjusting the manufacturing lead time on the product form, you can ensure that Odoo recommends the optimal start date that aligns with your shop's production schedule and deliver the products to the customer just in time. All right, let's jump back into the flow, Odooers. All right, so now let's head to the manufacturing app just so that we could view all of the manufacturing orders from our inventory. So we're going to go up to operations, manufacturing orders. Perfect. Now we got a kind of messy list, if you will. Now on this MO dashboard, we basically use the source field that we have over here to keep track of which sales order is associated with the manufacturing order. Now that the MO for the custom keyboard that I just ordered is right here, and it's kind of easy to find because it's the only one that has that. The rest of these MOs are products Stealthy Wood will be producing the rest of the week. Yes, we are very, very profitable. Now, as you can see, we're quite busy. So here's production manager Jose Ignacio's tip for keeping your team organized and focused. Up here in this little area, click on that group by, select schedule, date, and week. Now, why did I just do that? Well, that drop-down menu revealed a couple different things. We can group objects and MOs in this case by a scheduled date. Different companies use different time scales, but here at Stealthy Wood, we plan by weeks. So, by seeing what we're doing week to week, it allows us to better focus, since I can see which manufacturing orders I still need to complete. Organized by, you guessed it, the week. Since we don't have any to do in our case in the past, this means our operators didn't fall behind last week. Great job, Steve. All those energy drinks are really paying off. All right, now all we need to do is focus on the MOs in the future and plan for another productive week. It's pretty simple, right? Now with our MOs sorted by deadline, we have a clear idea of which tasks we need to prioritize. In the list of MOs for that upcoming week, we can see that all 5 MOs are actually ready to produce in our case. So what do? Well, we have all the components, so let's check all 5 boxes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, beautiful. All of them are selected. And what are we going to do, Odooers? We're actually going to hit plan. And just like that, would you look at that? Remember, Odooers, short-term planning begins as soon as I click the plan button. Odoo will assign work centers to each of the manufacturing orders I have planned and create a schedule based on the capacity of each work center and work order duration. Next, I actually want to go for the MO for the custom keyboard. So we're going to close that out, go up here, and you see ours right there. And we're going to go in there. All right, beautiful. We can also plan directly on the manufacturing order itself. In our case, we'll hit plan. Wait a second, would you look at what just happened? The scheduled date has changed from 8 a.m. on August 6th to 10 a.m. on August 7th. Well, before you freak out, let me explain what happened. Essentially, my work center has a limited capacity, and it can only handle a certain number of work orders within a day due to the scheduled working hours. To better illustrate this, let's go to planning. And now I'm worker Jose Ignacio, and we're going to be covering the work orders planning dashboard as it features an interactive Gantt view schedule of upcoming operations at each of our 3 work centers that we have over here on the left. Now we can actually view the schedule by month, year, week, day, but remember, we prefer planning by the week, Odooers. And let's use these navigational arrows up here just to put us to that 1 week I've been chatting about. All right, so we're at the week of August 6th to the 12th. Now, this Gantt view shows the schedule for the 5 MOs that we planned earlier, and they're each color-coded, occupying the timetable for each of the work centers. You'll notice that blocks of the same color indicate work orders that happen to be, you guessed it, the same work order, because color matching is great. And you'll also notice that these green highlighted regions over here on the left are the scheduled hours for each of the work centers. The total capacity is based on the 40-hour work week that we already talked about, because that is the max. If no more work orders are scheduled, Steve can chill in the break room for the remaining hours of the week. So let's actually switch over to viewing this by the day. And what day do we want to move over to? Well, I've been talking about that one day, the 7th. It's a very busy day that day. As you'll notice, we chatted about what would end up happening with that one work order that the custom keyboard required.
Now, briefly, as you'll notice, there's actually one here for a tofu 60 at 8 to 9, which is why ours got bounced over here to the 10 a.m. slot on the 7th because it's a Monday and that was a Sunday. So Odoo did all of that automatically. Then, given the manufacturing order, each work order afterwards, depends on the completion of each preceding one. So our custom keyboard won't move forward until the next part is done an hour later. And that's how these things proceed, Odooers. It's because we can't have them overlapping with each one, and they have to finish in sequential order as they are scheduled that way. Now, when allocating work centers, Odoo factors in product quantity, operation time, and the work center capacity. Moreover, work orders will only be scheduled during the hours we previously configured in our work centers. Now, let's take a look at work orders planned for the first operation, and that one is actually lubing the switches. Since each of my work centers has a capacity of 1, they can only handle one work order at a time. Throughout the workday, you can see that I have multiple work orders planned at work center 1 over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you look at this fourth one, it actually went into the next day because can't have people working overnight. You can only do so much. And looking at the next day's schedule, it actually sees that there's 2 other work orders that involve the other workstations as well. I can also drag and drop these around. And, as you'll notice, a small odoopsie, Odooers. It seems that I have triggered a scheduling conflict over here. But what are we to do, Odooers? Well, apparently when they overlap, something bad happens. And that's it for this video. Yes, I'm leaving you on a cliffhanger. You can watch how to replan MOs in your next video. Just kidding. Odoo always has a solution. You can actually solve this by just clicking on replan. And just like that, Odoo will automatically replan this for the proper time. And there you have it. We now know how to plan manufacturing processes in the long term, understand how lead times keep our manufacturing processes on track, and how to schedule work center operations. I hope that I helped you level up your game. Have a great day, Odooers.
All right, bonjour, doers. Now, in some industries, it's common to consume more or fewer components than what is defined on the bill of materials. Now, this kind of flexible consumption is prevalent in industries such as food and beverage, where usage depends on a variety of factors. Now, let's say you're making a fruit salad. Recipe calls for 1 cup of apples. If the apples you receive are half the size this week, you're going to need twice as many to get that 1 cup. Or maybe you've run out of apples, and now you're using pears for a weird salad. Odoo's flexible consumption feature allows us to keep track of any modifications we make to a product during its manufacturing process, thereby keeping product and component counts accurate in our inventory and during production. Odoo even permits flexible consumption for subcontracted production. Now, to learn more about subcontracting, be sure to check out the tutorials related to that. Now, at Stealthywood, our flagship showroom has its own cafe where we make wholesome treats that our visiting customers can purchase. Our most popular is a cheese souffle. So let's take a look and see how we can use flexible consumption in Odoo to make that. All right, Odooers, so here we are in the manufacturing application. Now, first we need to enable flexible consumption, which is done on the bill of materials itself. So we're going to go up here to our products, bill of materials, and now we'll be preparing our popular cheese souffle. So we got to find that and open it up. All right, there we go. All right, now the recipe is pretty simple. Heavy cream, eggs, Parmesan cheese. If we go check the operations tab, you'll notice we just have one operation. It's a mix and bake. Now, when we head over here to the miscellaneous tab, you'll notice a few other things. Now, you'll see that there are 3 options for flexible consumption. Now, we have allowed, allowed with warning, and blocked. Now, the allowed option is appropriate for frequent flexible consumption as it lets you freely consume any amount of components without restriction. I don't like restrictions myself. And we also have allowed with warning, and that's an option that allows flexible consumption, but provides a notification to review before closing the manufacturing order. And finally, we have blocked, and that is an option that, depending on the user's access rights, may or may not be allowed to close the actual manufacturing order when modifications to consumption are made. That's to warn us against Steve. Now, for the first part of this demo, I'm going to use the allowed with warning, because I just need a little warning. And later on, we're going to go over blocked over here. Now, flexible consumption is going to be something that I love a lot, actually, and you'll see why. Now, to illustrate how to use flexible consumption, let's create a manufacturing order. So we're going to go up here to operations, manufacturing orders, new one. And what is our product? Well, we've been talking about cheese souffles. So that's what we'll make. All right.
Everything looks good to go. Let's confirm this and let's jump on over here to our work orders, and we're going to go into tablet view just to show you how this looks like to a chef. All right, Odoo, so here we are inside of our tablet mode because that's what an employee would see. Now, Odoo shows us up at the top how much we're going to be making. In this case, we're going to be making a dozen of these souffles. Now, over here on our left-hand side, we have our consumption, our basically ingredients that we need to validate the consumption of. Now, starting with heavy cream, we basically used a bit too much. We had to make these peaks perfect, though. So we're going to validate that. And for the next one, our eggs were really huge, so we didn't need as many. 23 instead of 24. And you'll notice when I did that, the validation button changed from highlight over here to the continue production instead. Now, in our case, though, we are certain that we used 23 out of 24 eggs, so we can actually still hit validate and move on. And finally, our Parmesan cheese. We're perfect now. So at this point, we've gotten the hang of it and we've used the exact amount. Now, when we mark this as done, I want to show you something. Let's go back to our manufacturing order. And if we check over here to the components tab, we'll notice the differences between consumed and the reserved columns. The quantities displayed in the consumed column follow what we typed in the work order. Now, the colors of the numbers over here inside of the consumed indicate if the amounts consumed were greater than, less than, or equal to what was specified on the BOM. Orange over here indicates overconsumption. Sorry about that. Over. We use 1.1 instead of 1. Black indicates underconsumption, 23 instead of 24. And finally, green is a perfect score. Now, Odoo also lets you change component consumption directly from the manufacturing order form, just like this actually. And boom. Now, this actually allows you to complete the manufacturing order without going into the tablet view. Now, when we mark the manufacturing order as done, you'll notice something pops up. A consumption warning appears since we had previously configured flexible consumption to be allowed with a warning. Now, when we confirm the consumption and everything, you'll notice that Odoo now has updated the to consume and to match the consumed column, for bookkeeping purposes. Now, also, you notice down here, we actually have that extra egg as well because it's set aside as unconsumed since we use fewer eggs than what was called for. Now the consumed quantities are also recorded inside of our product moves, which we can view using that smart button that I showed off. Since we consumed a different quantity of ingredients and expect that the cost of our final product will be slightly different. And you can actually see that if we go into Odoo's cost analysis over here. Now, thankfully, Odoo's cost analysis report keeps track of that for us. Now, since Odoo records manufacturing costs based on the exact quantities consumed, the actual product cost will differ slightly from the cost listed on the bill of materials. Now, finally, I think it's time that I show you what that blocked consumption looks like. So we're going to create a new one. All right, Odoo, so here we are in our bill of materials. Now, if we click into cheese souffle and go into miscellaneous, this time we're going to select blocked because I'd like to show you what that looks like when certain actions may or may not be available. Now, these will depend on the user's access rights. Only users with administration rights can close a manufacturing order if the components used do not match what is specified on the bill of materials. So Mark Demo, for example, has user rights on the manufacturing app, but not administrator rights. This is set in the settings app by an admin. Now, for more on this, check out our Getting Started e-learning videos, which cover this. Now, let's see what blocked flexible consumption looks like from a user profile with limited access. All right, Odoo, so here I am, Mark Demo, and we're going to go and create a new MO for that cheese souffle that the boss man wants. Perfect. Everything looks good. I better get on this immediately. So what are we going to do? We're going to go into work orders and start into our tablet view. All right, Odoo, so here we are inside of our tablet, and similarly, 1.1 liters. We'll validate that. And now this time when we do that, it'll tell us if we do 23 eggs here, continue production instead of validating, and then something cool happens. Now you'll notice that when we tried to move forward, because of the super large eggs, I'll be forced to click the continue production button as you saw. Now notice that there's this extra step that is basically asking me for consuming the last egg. And if we validate that as well, it allows us to move forward to our Parmesan cheese, which has now actually been unchanged as well. For some reason, we use the same amount of cheese. So we validate that and we mark this as done. And if we go back over here and we go over to our manufacturing order, there's something I want to show you all. It's still to close. Why? Well, if we hit mark as done, you'll notice we have a consumption warning that basically tells us we don't have powers. There's no way for me to validate this and move forward since I am a limited user. So how does this look like for a user with admin rights as Mark Demo cannot continue? Well, I'm going to show you what that looks like.
All right, Odoer, so Mitchell admin here. Now we're going to go up to our manufacturing orders, and we got to go back to that one that Mark Demo just did. All right, so I noticed something immediately. Now, if you notice, we did not actually consume 24 eggs, so I can actually modify this because I am an admin. And now I can finally hit Mark is done. And you'll notice I get that same consumption warning, but this time, since I have way more power than Mark and Steve, I can actually force this. And by selecting it, I can actually confirm the adjusted amounts consumed and mark this ammo as done. And as you notice, it actually does that for the to consume. There you have it, flexible consumption. It's a helpful tool that allows companies to keep better track of their components, even when a different quantity than expected is consumed. Now, this functionality can be tailored to the specific needs of each company by choosing who can and who cannot approve the use of different quantities of components. That's all for this video. See you in the next one. Go grab a snack. Hello, doers. So good to see you again. In our last video, we talked about how to manufacture products in one step. That step being the manufacturing process itself. Well, today we're actually going to see how to manufacture products in 2 or 3 steps. For companies with larger manufacturing and inventory operations, it's often useful to track not only what gets manufactured, but also which components are used, and where the finished product goes after it's produced. In two-step manufacturing, a transfer is created to move components from the location where they are stored to the location where the manufacturing takes place. However, no transfer is created to move finished products to the location where they are stored. In three-step manufacturing, 2 transfers are created. One to move components to the production location before manufacturing begins, and then another to move the finished products to their storage location. In both 2 and 3-step manufacturing, the manufacturing step itself is processed in the same way as 1-step manufacturing. As a result, we don't actually need to go into a ton of detail about that particular step inside of this video. But make sure to watch that previous video for a more detailed overview of the manufacturing step, which I'll link below. All right, enough chit chat, let's hop right in. Now, in the last video, I showed you how to choose the number of steps used for manufacturing, but I'm just going to run through them again real quick. So to start, you want to open up that inventory app, select configuration, and warehouses, baited you. Now we're going to select our main warehouse over here, and I want to direct your attention to a few different things. Now, a different number of steps can be set for each of your warehouses if need be. Now, on the warehouses page, you want to find the manufacturing area, and you'll notice we have 3 options over here. You want to enable one of these. Now, for this video, I'm actually going to pick components, manufacture, and then store products, as you see already selected down there. Even though we're selecting the 3-step option, we're still going to see the entire 2-step process before moving on to that 3rd step. That way, we always get the best of both worlds. Okay, let's move on then. Now, for this video, we're going to be using our coat rack product as an example. So I think it's time for us to hop out of inventory and hop into manufacturing. Now select products and then products in the top panel. All right. Now the coat rack itself and the components used to manufacture it are listed here. Here, I actually see on the coat rack card that we have 8 units on hand. And we also happen to have, what do we have? 736 dowels and 92 poles. It's quite a lot, and these are used to make our beloved coat rack. Now keep these numbers in mind, even though they're all different and large, because we're going to be checking in on them later. So I think it's time to go practice everything. Okay, it's time to get to the fun part. So inside of the manufacturing app, go ahead and select operations and manufacturing orders, and then select new. All right, inside of the product field, well, I'm going to select our coat rack product over here, and you'll notice stuff gets immediately populated. For the time being, I'm going to leave the quantity at 1 units, and I want you to divert your attention over to the to consume column over here, which tells us it's going to take us 1 of these wooden poles and 6 of the dowels over here. Now, once that we're all set, we're just going to confirm this over here. Now, once that I did that, you'll notice something else happened. The component status field over here changed to available, which means that we have the necessary components in stock, but the color happens to be orange because the components still need to be transferred to our production location. Additionally, and this is actually the kind of cool part, the MO readiness will update in the chatter saying waiting on another operation. And isn't that kind of wonderful? And that's because we need to transfer the components to the production location before we begin working on the MO. So after confirming the MO, we also have a new smart button that appears at the top of the page titled Transfers over here. Now, when I click the smart button, I'm taken over here to a page and it's displaying the transfer orders created for my MO. The first is my pick components one that we have right over here, which is telling us, well, we got to move those components to the production location.
The status for it over here in the nice little teal color tells us that it's ready since we have the components available in our inventory. The second one that we have over here is actually storing the components, which is used to move the finished product back to inventory after it's manufactured. The status for this one is actually waiting another operation since we haven't manufactured the product yet because it happens to be that picking and then manufacturing. So now I think it's time for us to go and pick these things. So on the transfer, we're going to click on validate, and that's going to be so that we can confirm the components have actually been transferred. Then I'm going to head back all the way to my MO using the breadcrumbs, which today, pumpernickel. And you'll notice a few things have changed over here. The very first thing is the component status is a nice healthy green over here, since the components are now at our production location. And inside of the chatter, we can see the MO readiness has been changed to ready, since we have everything we need to start production. Very cool. Now that we have everything we need, I'm actually going to click on produce all to complete the MO over here in the top left. And look at that. Now remember, for a full overview of the manufacturing step, be sure to check out the one-step manufacturing video linked below. Now, if we had enabled two-step manufacturing on the settings page for our warehouse, the manufacturing process would be complete at this point. However, since we're using three-step manufacturing, there's just one more thing we need to do. You guessed it, we need to process the store finished product transfer to move our finished coat rack into inventory. To do so, I'm actually going to click on that smart button again, and you'll notice the very first one that we had for picking is done at this point. And now the other one is set to ready. So I'm going to click on that transfer, and then I'm going to click validate on the top. And voila, chef's kiss. We've manufactured one coat rack and transferred it to inventory. It doesn't get much easier than that. Now, before I let you go, let's just check on the on-hand counts for our coat rack and its components one more time. We're going to select products and then products up at the top. Now, below this, below me actually, you'll see a small graphic that tells us those numbers that I'm sure you remembered. And immediately what we can see now is that there are now 9 units of the coat rack since we made one, and 8 plus 1 is 9. And then looking over here, our wooden dowels have gone down, as well as our wooden pole. Additionally, these on-hand counts went down since we manufactured something, and that math checks out. As always, our product counts remain accurate based on the number of components used and products manufactured. And that's it for today, my lovely doers, bro doers as well. You know how to manufacture products using 2 and 3 steps now. I hope to see you all again for another tutorial. Go grab a snack.
Welcome back, my friends, to the tutorial that never ends. I'm so glad you could attend. Step inside, step inside. Today we're going to be discussing how to use unbilled orders in the manufacturing app. You see, doers, running a manufacturing operation isn't always about building stuff. Sometimes you have to unbuild something that you've previously built. This can be necessary for a variety of reasons. For example, maybe you built too many units of an item, or perhaps you want to unbuild a product so you can use its components to manufacture a different product. Whatever your reason, and I'm sure you've got a good one, Odoo makes it exceptionally easy to unbuild products, all while ensuring that inventory counts for finished products and components remain accurate. So, enough chit-chat. Let's jump into our Odoo database now to see how this all works. So before we create an unbilled order, I want to quickly show you a couple of things. First, let's take a look at the actual on-hand counts for the product that we're going to be unbuilding, our coat rack, as well as the components that are used to build it. So to do so, I'm actually going to jump into the manufacturing application over here. I'm going to select products up at the top and products once again. Now, as you can see from each product card, I have 1 unit of the coat rack in stock over here. As for the coat rack's components, they actually happen to be the wooden dowels and the wooden pole. And I have whatever units that I have on hand. But you need to remember these numbers, which happens to be 715 and 91. So write them down somewhere. And spoiler alert, something is going to change. Now, next, we're going to take a look at the bill of materials or BOM for our coat rack. So I'm going to get there by clicking on the coat rack product card right there. And immediately, I could just use the smart button up at the top. And there we are right there. Now, let's take a look at, in our case, we actually want the very first one right there on the list. So we're going to select that one. And let's take a look at the components tab right here. Here we can see that one coat rack is made up of a wooden pole and then 6 of these actual dowels down there. This means that when we unbuild a coat rack, we should be left with that number of each component. To see this in action, let's get to what this video is really about, the unbuild order itself.
So to create a new unbilled order, all I actually need to do is select the operations subheading up at the top. And then I want to select, you guessed it, unbilled orders. Now we're going to select new in the top left. On this new order, I'm going to start by selecting our coat rack product over there. And then everything is set. When I do that, you'll notice that the main bill of materials or BOM for the product is automatically selected in the bill of material field that we have right below it. If I want to choose a different BOM, I can actually do so by clicking on the drop-down menu right there inside of here and selecting something else. In our case, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to mess things up. Alternatively, I could also select a specific BOM in the bill of materials field before selecting a product, in which case the product field would auto-populate with the corresponding product, which is kind of nice. Now, inside of the quantity field, I can actually specify the quantity of the product that we need to unbuild. For this example, I'm going to leave it at just 1 unit. Now, if the product being unbuilt was originally created in a specific manufacturing order, I can actually select it in the manufacturing order field over here. And let's see. It actually gives us a full list right there. We can actually select any of them. We'll just pick one. Now, the source location field that we have, which happens to be right below it, is used to specify the location where the product being unbuilt is stored. The destination location field is used to specify the location where the reclaimed components will be stored after unbuilding is completed. Both of these fields are set by default to our main warehouse location. I'm just going to leave them as is for this order. All right, now that this form is all filled out, let's actually go ahead and pretend that we've disassembled our coat rack into its components and they're all behind me. Now with that done, all we have to do to complete the unbuild order is click on the unbuild button in the top left. Boom. Once that we do that, we'll notice that the stage indicator in the top right corner of the form moves from draft to done. And just like that, we've unbuilt 1 unit of our coat rack product and registered it inside of Odoo. Now, you would expect the inventory counts for a coat rack and its components to have updated automatically. But let's just do a quick check to make sure that that's actually what's happened. So to do so, products up at the top and products. Now from the product cards, I can actually see that the number of coat racks on hand happens to now be 0 from 1. And while the on-hand counts for the wooden dowel and wooden pole components, smaller doopsie, have actually increased by 6, which happens to be the dowels, and 1 for the actual pole. Perfect, that's just what we expected to happen. Now you may be thinking to yourself, what happens when I try to create an unbuilt order for a product that I don't have on hand? Well, like all things that we try inside of Jose's Odoo Labs, let's take a quick look. As an example, we're going to use the coat rack product, which now is actually at 0. So for that, I need to first select operations once again, unbuild orders, and you guessed it, once again, new. Select that coat rack once again inside of our products, let everything populate, click out of that. And you'll notice once that everything is done, we're going to select unbuild. And oh my goodness, would you look at that? I have a warning, and this warning is that I have an insufficient quantity of coat racks to unbuild. Now, Odoo will allow me to proceed with the unbuild order, which I can do by clicking on confirm right there on the right. However, as the pop-up states, this may lead to inconsistencies in my inventory. I don't want that to happen, so I'm just going to click discard right there. All right, before I let you go, there's just one more thing. Sometimes during the unbuilding process, a component becomes unusable for one reason or another. When this happens, it is necessary to remove the component from inventory using a scrap order. If you want to learn how to do so, check out the video in the description below, or I'm going to include a link to our video on scrap orders. And that's all I've got for you folks. Today I showed you how to disassemble finished products into their components using unbuild orders. Stay tuned for more exciting tutorials because I know you will. I love you. Have a great night. Welcome back, Odooers. My name is Jose Ignacio. Today we're going to talk about subcontracting. What is subcontracting, you ask? Well, sometimes a company doesn't have the resources necessary to manufacture a product that they want to sell. In such a case, they can hire a subcontractor to manufacture the product for them. Subcontracting has benefits for both the subcontractor and the contracting company. Among other things, it allows subcontractors to specialize in the tasks that they're good at, and it helps contracting companies adapt to changing economic conditions as well. Inside of this video, we're going to be discussing basic subcontracting, in which the subcontractor is responsible for sourcing the components used for manufacturing subcontracted products. In the following videos, we're going to cover some ways that you can supply the subcontractor with components yourself. But today, let's keep it simple. All right, before we can use subcontracting inside of Odoo, we first have to enable it. So to do so, I'm actually going to open up the manufacturing application over here. And now we want to select configuration and settings. We're always here. Now over here under the operations heading, I need to make sure that the checkbox that is next to, you guessed it, subcontracting itself right there is selected. And once that I've already done that, you want to hit save in case you haven't. So make sure you check both and save it. Now with this setting enabled, a few new features become available inside of Odoo. On products, bill of materials, or BOMs for those acronym lovers, we're going to be able to select subcontracting as the BOM type and specify one or more subcontractors who will manufacture the product. Inside of the inventory app, which I'm going to go into right now over here, 2 subcontracting specific routes become available. We have both the resupply subcontractor routes as well as the dropship subcontractor route over here on the right. These can be assigned to products on their product forms themselves. Now these routes will be covered in a future video, but today we're going to show you how to configure a product and its BOM so that we can subcontract its production. So to do so, we actually want to go back to our main dashboard over here. And now we need to open up, once again, the inventory app. I did that in case you haven't done this yet and you were on a different screen. So right now we want to select products and products. Great. Now first, I need to select, in our case, the product that I like to talk about, which is the tricycle. Been doing a lot of stuff with bikes lately, I feel. Okay. Once that we're inside of here, we want to make our way over to the purchase tab. Now, I've already added Bike Friends, which happens to be our vendor right there. This is the subcontractor that manufactures our tricycle product. I've also specified the price that we pay them for each tricycle, $50. Pretty affordable. Now next, I want to select the inventory tab so that we can talk about, you guessed it, the routes in here. Now I've enabled the buy route that we have right there, which tells Odoo that we will buy the product and then have it shipped to us. This means a receipt will be created when we confirm a purchase order for the product. The receipt is then processed when we receive the product. Now I could enable the replenish on order, which happens to be the MTO route right below it as well, which makes it so that the purchase orders are automatically created upon confirmation of a sales order. However, this route isn't strictly necessary for subcontracted products. So I'm just going to show you the flow as it begins with a purchase order. In addition, I could select the dropship route, which you were probably also wondering about down there. Not the first one, dropship route only, instead of the buy route. If I did that, the subcontractor would ship the product directly to the customer instead of sending it back to us. In that case, a confirmed purchase order would create a dropship order instead of a receipt order. So remember that. A confirmed purchase order will create a dropship order, not a receipt order. All right, now that we've configured the product, I think it's time for us to go check out that BOM. So in order for us to do that, I'm going to click on the Bill of Materials Smart button up here at the top. And then we want to select the BOM for the tricycle. Let's take a look at that. So the very first thing I need you to take a look at is the BOM type. As you checked over here on the right, you'll notice it selected the subcontracting option. This tells Odoo that this BOM's corresponding product is manufactured by a subcontractor. Which subcontractor, you ask? Well, we can actually specify that in the subcontractors field right below it. You can specify multiple subcontractors, but for our tricycle product, we only have one, Bike Friends. Now, if you're also an expert BOM maker, like me, you may think it's time to add components down below over here. However, we actually don't need to add components when using the basic subcontracting workflow. That's because the subcontractor is responsible for every element of manufacturing, including the required components. So once a product is configured for basic subcontracting, the workflow for buying it is similar to the workflow for purchasing any product. The main difference is that we have to wait for the subcontractor to manufacture the product before they can actually ship it. We can even estimate the delivery date using lead times, which I'm going to be covering in a video later in this series. All right, let's go to our actual workflow now. So we're going to start out by creating a purchase order to buy the subcontracted product from the subcontractor. Can't show you anything till I create something like a PO. So to do so, we're actually going to go out of inventory back to our main database. And you guessed it, I'm going to search for and open up the purchase app. Now we want to select orders up here at the top and purchase orders, actually. Great. Now we need to select new. Top button over there to the left. Now on the new purchase order, I'm going to add the subcontractor, which we said is Bike Friends, not Bike World. I don't know why I did that. I'm sorry. So that's for the vendor field right there. Then I actually need to add a product. So select it down there in the products, and we're going to pick, well, it's the tricycle that we're looking for. Thank goodness for Odoo auto completing. And now that we're done, all I actually have to do is confirm this order right over there. And once I do that, look at that. Smart buttons appear right at the top of the page. Now let's say that a few days have passed and the subcontractor has just delivered the tricycle to our warehouse. Awesome. That's the greatest news ever. So all that we need to do now is open up the receipt order by clicking on the receipt smart button over here. Or you can also click on the receive products button that was above the purchase order. I'm going to go back just to talk about that. See right there, we could do that. But I use the button. So once that we've opened the receipt, we just need to click validate right there. And the product is entered into our inventory. It's really that simple. And well, it's time to go today. That's it for today, friends. You now know how to configure products for the basic subcontracting workflow. Stay tuned for the rest of the videos in this series, where we're going to learn how to supply subcontractors with components and use lead times to estimate delivery dates. I'm going to see you soon, Odooers. And if I don't, go grab a snack. Lay's, please still sponsor me. I'm running out of chips. Bye.
All right, welcome back, Odooers. Today we're taking a look at how to split manufacturing orders. You see, sometimes it's necessary to manufacture only a portion of the products in an MO. For example, let's say you created an MO for 10 tables. Later, you decide that you only want to produce 5 tables right away, and the other 5 are going to be for a later date. In that situation, all you have to do is split. That's my best, I guess, split the MO into 2 different orders. One to be processed immediately, and another to be processed later on. This can also be accomplished by manufacturing some of the products and creating a back order for the rest. However, it can also be useful to split an MO before any manufacturing itself takes place. As you can see, this workflow can be used for a variety of reasons. Maybe you realize you only have the space to store an additional 5 tables because tables are big. Or perhaps there are only enough components to produce 5 tables. You've run out of seating money, and you need to wait for more components to arrive before producing the other 5. Whatever those reasons are, Odoo's manufacturing app makes it easy to split an MO into multiple smaller orders while keeping track of which MO they were created from. So without any further ado, let's split. So before we can split an MO, we need to create one first. So let's go do that now. We can actually use the example that I mentioned in the introduction, one manufacturing order for 10 units of our table product. And to create it, I'm going to start by navigating over to our manufacturing app over here. And then we want to click on operations and manufacturing orders. Then now I could select an existing MO from the list in this page, but let's click new so that I can create a new one. So it's a little bit easier for you to see everything. So inside of our product field, we're going to type in the word table, just a table. And then once that I did that and I click out of there, everything itself, including the bill of materials, is filled out for the actual table. I could also achieve this in reverse by selecting the BOM first and have the product field auto-populate that way. Now next, I actually need to enter 10 into the quantity because again, I talked about 10 of these units over there. And that's to indicate that this MO is being created to produce 10 tables. All right, everything at this point looks good, so it's time to confirm the MO. So we're going to confirm it, and we're good to go right there. Now that our MO is confirmed, we're actually ready to split it into 2 smaller orders. So to do so, I'm going to start by clicking on the actions button that we have over here next to the reference number. And once again, you guessed it. Here we have a few different options. Then the one that we're going to go with is splits. So let's just select that. And you'll notice we have a new pop-up over here. This is the split production pop-up window, which displays a few details about the MO in question. First off, we actually see our MO number over here. And then in this case, its MO number is 255. It's good to remember that. Let's remember that number because it's going to come in handy into play later on. So next we see that the product the MO was created for, which is our table over there. And finally, we see the quantity the MO was created for inside of the quantity to produce section over here. And it's 10 units. So below all of these details, we see a field called split number. This is where we're going to tell Odoo how many MOs the original MO should be split into. For example, if I enter 2 into this field, cool stuff happens right there. So now that I've done that, 2 lines have appeared. One for each MO that will be created by the split because I've selected the number 2. Each line tells us the scheduled date right there on the far left. The person responsible, moi.
and then the quantity to produce over here on the far right for each MO. I can click on any of these fields to update them manually as well if I would like to, including like responsible and see all of these. I just had to show you that. So for example, let's say that I actually want to produce 6 tables in the first order and 4 in the second. All I actually have to do is click on the quantity to produce field in the first line and type in the number 6. And then after that we do that, I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom one, just to set it over here to 4. Okay, the main thing to remember during this step is that the numbers inside of the quantity to produce column over here must always add up to the number in the quantity to produce field at the top of this pop-up. So get your calculators out if you need them. I already tossed mine earlier, so I can't even use it. Because if they don't, Odoo won't allow you to split the MO. All right, everything looks good here, so let's click on that split button in the bottom left over here. And look at that. Once that we do, the actual MO is split into 2 orders, and we are automatically taken to the page for the first order. How do we know it's the first order? Well, in the MO reference field that we have at the top over here, you notice it's ending with a tag 001 added to the end of it. If I want to see all of the MOs created by the split, I just need to click on this backorder smart button up at the top, and we're taken right there to a list where we can see them. The button is titled this way because Odoo considers the split MOs to be backorders, even though they weren't created through the backorder workflow. Clicking on the backorders button takes me to this list, as you just saw, and they're all numbered over here by their tag as 1 and 2, because that was the split, and that's how we're going to tell them apart. And there you have it, folks. Today you learn how to split a single MO into multiple MOs for smaller product quantities. That's all for today, but I hope to see you again real soon. Hello, doers. My name is Jose Ignacio, and I caught you on the side camera today. Anyways, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a look at how to merge manufacturing orders, or MOs. You see, it's pretty common for manufacturers to have multiple MOs for the same product at the same time. Sometimes it's useful to process MOs separately, even when they contain the same products. However, it can also be helpful to manufacture the products in 2 different MOs at the same time. For example, maybe an MO was created for a lower quantity of a product than what you actually needed. In that case, another MO had to be created as well. So inside of Odoo, the manufacturing app allows us to combine those 2 MOs into a single MO so that the manufacturing of the products within them can happen simultaneously. That's pretty cool, right? I knew you'd think so. All right, enough lollygagging, chit-chat, everything. Let's jump into our Odoo database just to see all the nuts and bolts of merging manufacturing orders. All right, first thing we need to do is create a couple of manufacturing orders. Why, you might ask? Well, we can't merge MOs if we don't have any. That would be like merging nothing with nothing, which would leave us with, my calculations are correct, nothing as well. And we don't want that, Odooers. So let's go make some right now. So let's go make 2 MOs inside of the manufacturing app, going to operations and manufacturing orders and select new. And the product that we're going to be making is 2 of them for the chair product. So let's start off with our very first one right here. Now we're only going to be using 2 MOs for this example, but Odoo allows you to combine any number of MOs. The only limitation is that each MO must contain the same product and must be inside of the same state. For example, it's not possible to merge one MO created for a table and another one created for a chair. So we're already inside of here, and let's get started. Now, for our product field, again, it's the chair, and doing so, as you can tell, already auto-populated our bill of materials over here with the associated different products as well inside of our components tab. Now, up next, speaking of quantity, we want to change this up here. I want 5 units to produce. And finally, all I need to do is click confirm to confirm this MO. Now, at the top of the confirmed MO, as you can tell, we also have a reference number. And this reference number is something that you're going to need to remember, as you're going to see why later. Now, I could use this exact same workflow to create a second MO. However, to save time, I'm going to click on the actions, which is right over here next to that little thing. And you guessed it, we're going to select duplicate. Once we do that, creates an identical MO for the same quantity of the chair product. The only difference is that the reference number has increased by 1. It's this big one, and it's also the small one up there at the top. I realized I forgot to show that. Small little doopsie. And this indicates that this is a different MO than the first one. Now, before we move on, again, select that purple confirm button, and we're all set. Now, this is because Duplicate MOs are always created inside of the draft state, and MOs can only be merged if they are in the same state as I stated before. So once you confirm it, they're both inside of the same state as the first one. Perfect. Time to move on.
All right, so with both MOs created and confirmed, we're ready to merge them together. So to do so, I actually need to navigate back to the manufacturing orders page. We could do so by selecting operations in the top header, manufacturing orders. Now down here at the bottom, we're going to find the ones that we actually, they start today. And it is the ones ending in 52 and 53 respectively. I'm going to tick the checkboxes next to each one of these. We're going to go up to the top center and find that little gear button that says actions, and we're going to select merge. So once that we did that, the two MOs were combined into a single MO, and we were taken directly to the page of that newly merged MO. As you can see, the MO has been given a brand new reference number of 54, ending in 54 on each of these. And also, as you can see, the quantity field over here for each one of these to consume lists both of them added together, 10 units, which makes sense since the two MOs were merged and they were each 5 units. And finally, let's return to the manufacturing orders page, operations, manufacturing orders over here. And would you look at that? We can see that both of the MOs that were merged have disappeared. And only the chair MO is listed now as a singular one for 10 units. And you can also see right now, if we look over here at the source, additionally, we can actually see the original manufacturing orders that were merged to create it. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for sticking around, folks. I'm sure you're glad you did, because now you know how to combine manufacturing orders like an absolute pro. See you next time. Go grab a snack. Lay's, sponsor me. It's wonderful to see you again, O-Doers. My name is Jose Ignacio. Today, we're going to take an even deeper dive into subcontracting. So previously, we discussed basic subcontracting, in which a subcontractor is going to be responsible for obtaining the components used for manufacturing a subcontracted product. But what about situations where you want to supply a subcontractor with the components yourself? Well, that's the best thing about Odoo. We offer 2 routes to accomplish that. Resupply a subcontractor on order, and dropship subcontractor on order. So inside of this video, we're going to be discussing the resupply subcontractor on order route, in which we send components from our warehouses directly to the subcontractor. Now this differs from the dropship subcontractor on order route, in which components are dropshipped from a vendor directly over to a subcontractor. Resupplying a subcontractor from our own warehouse allows us to outsource the manufacturing of certain products, while still having control over the inventory count of the components needed for subcontracting. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into the Odoo platform to see how it all works. All right, in this video, we're going to be using the resupply subcontractor and order route to manufacture 1 unit of our unicycle product. So let's begin by seeing how I've configured the product and its components to use that route. Now, since I've already covered all of the general subcontracting settings in the basic subcontracting video, this video will only cover the settings specific to products that use the resupply subcontractor on order route. If you haven't already watched the basic subcontracting video, be sure to do that before we continue. It's going to save you some time. I'm going to link it below. Now let's click into the inventory application over here. We're going to select products and products, a familiar dance. And we're going to open up, in our case, our unicycle, if I can spell properly today. Our unicycle. So inside of here, I need to click on the Bill of Materials Smart button up at the top, because that's going to take me where I need to. And I'm going to select the product. And remember how we didn't list any components on the BOM for the product in our basic subcontracting video? Well, while using resupply subcontractor on order, we do need to specify the product's components, which you see down here in the components tab, just so that Odoo knows what we need to send to the subcontractor. If you don't do that, what are we going to send? As you can see, the components tab over here already has a requirement of a frame and a unicycle wheel. It's just 2 components right there. Now, this is what we're going to send to the subcontractor after confirming a purchase order for this product. Now, once we're done, I'm actually going to go over to the Unicycle Frames product page just by selecting our nice little internal link, just to show you how I've configured both of the components for this product. So inside of here, if we take a quick look, we're at our components product page, but I want the inventory tab over here. Now, again, I talked about routes, and here we have it. Resupply subcontractor on order right there. You can see that this is the operation that we would like to use. Now, with this route enabled, a resupply subcontractor order will be created to send this component to the subcontractor
each time that a purchase order for the unicycle is confirmed. All right, I've already configured our other component in the same way, so I don't think I need to go show that, which means everything is configured the way that we want, and we can move on to subcontracting our unicycle. So the process starts when we confirm a purchase order, or PO for my acronym lovers, to buy the subcontracted product from the subcontractor. So to do so, let's head back to our main dashboard over here, and we're going to open our purchase app. Now I'm typing again. And select new in the top left corner. We got to start with our vendor. So who is the subcontractor that we want in this case? We're going to pick Bike Friends. These are always very legitimate companies, by the way. So then on the products page, I'm going to click on the add a product right there. And we're going to start typing in for our unicycle. Let it fill it out, and we're great. We're perfect. Now all I need to do is confirm this order. And that's the order of the unicycle from Bike Friends. So once I click it, you'll notice we have two smart buttons up at the top, resupply and receipt. The resupply smart button opens the resupply subcontractor order, which we will confirm once the unicycle's components have been sent to the subcontractor. The receipt button, on the other hand, opens the order's receipt, which we will confirm once we have received the manufactured unicycles. So let's start by selecting the resupply smart button up at the top to open up our resupply subcontractor order. Here, we can see that Bike Friends is listed as the delivery address over there, and both the unicycle's components are listed in the operations tab. This means we will ship all of these components to Bike Friends. So once we ship them, I just need to click on the validate button up at the top, just to confirm that the components have been sent. And once that's done, I can return to the PO by selecting the source PO smart button up at the top. So, all right, it's time for us to process this. Let's say, I don't know, a week has passed and the subcontractor has manufactured our unicycle. It takes that long and they've shipped it back to us. So now all we need to do to process the receipt, in which we will enter the unicycle into inventory. I can open the receipt by clicking on the receipt smart button up at the top as well, or the receive products button over here. We're going to do that because it seems easier. It saves the screen time. So on the receipt, all I need to do is click validate right there. And the unicycle is entered into our inventory. There you go. It's really that simple. Well, folks, that's it for today. You now know how to subcontract a product using the resupply subcontractor and order route. Stay tuned for more subcontracting videos, and I'll see you next time. Go grab a snack. I actually have some today. Chili lime.
Hello again, my Odoo nuts. We're going to be talking about a quality app feature called failure locations. Now, if you watched our other quality videos, you already know that quality checks are used during certain operations to identify products that are defective or otherwise unusable. But where do those defective products go once that they've failed a check? Well, by setting a failure location on a specific quality control point, products that fail the checks it creates are automatically sent to that specific location. So without further ado, no chit chat, let's fail some quality checks. Or upside down. Okay, so first things first, we need to do some very quick configuration. So we want to jump into our inventory application, and we've done this dance before, configuration and settings. Now you want to scroll all the way down until you reach the warehouse's header over here, and there we are. Now inside of here, you want to find storage location setting, which, as you guessed it, we've already checked off over here, just to save you a bit of extra time. If you haven't enabled it, make sure you check it off right there, hit save, just to lock in your settings right there before moving on. So what does this do? Well, the storage location setting allows us to create sublocations within warehouses to help further organize our inventory. They have a lot of uses in Odoo, but for this workflow specifically, having the setting enabled causes a failure locations field to appear on QCP forms. This is the field that we're going to use to designate where products that fail quality checks should be sent. All right, so now that we've got our settings the way that we want them, let's see how to add a failure location to a QCP. Now, it should actually also be noted, I always seem to say this. This video will only cover the details specific to failure locations. But if you need a refresher on how to create and use QCPs, check out the description below for a link to our video on that topic. Okay, now I need to head back to the main Odoo dashboard because we're going to the quality application to spend some quality time together. Then inside of here, you want to select the word quality control up in the header. And you guessed it, control points. And inside of here, we're going to select the word new because we're making a new one. However, I think I should actually probably not go this route. I've already created an example QCP ahead of time named Catry. So let's actually go back out of here. But that's where you would make a new quality control point. So inside of here, we want to select the Catry one that I talked about earlier. Okay, as you can see, I've selected our Catry product inside of the products field, which is very important. You always want to make sure you have the right product so that the naming makes sense. And the receipts operation in the operations field is present as well for our warehouse. Now, this means the QCP applies to receipt orders that contain the Catry product, but I could always choose a different product or operation. These actually allow you to add multiple. There's also nice little drop-down menus that make it a little bit easier for you to find stuff. Maybe you can't spell that day. That is a frequent problem of mine. Now, I've also selected quantity up here in the control per field, which makes it so that the one quality check will be requested for each quantity of Catrys that we receive into our inventory. This is important because the failure location field that actually exists down here only appears when we have the quantity option selected. Speaking of which, you can also see that I've selected the failed bin already as the location in the failure locations. This means that the failed bin can be selected as the location where products that fail quality checks created by this QCP are sent. I should also note that multiple failure locations can be added to this field, allowing workers who process quality checks to choose where a product is sent. I don't know, outside in Steve's house, throw them somewhere. And that's all you have to worry about when configuring a QCP to use a failure location. And it's pretty simple. Now I think it's time for us to move on to see how all of this actually works. Let's go mess up Steve's place. Okay, since we selected the Catry product and the receipts operation on our QCP, I'm going to create a purchase order so that we can receive that product into our inventory. So to do so, we're going to go into our purchase application over here. And now we want to select the word orders and purchase orders. Obviously, we need to click new over here because we're going to create a new purchase order. So inside of our vendor field, I want to use one of my cat related ones, Cat Cafe. I like that. And then obviously we need to use our product, which is that Catry that I keep talking about. I'm being very literal today. So inside of our products tab, everything has been selected and we are ready to move on now. I also want to enter a different quantity now that I've said that. We're going to go with 5 just because I want to show multiples. Now I just need to click confirm order up here at the top and we're done. We've confirmed our purchase order. So once I did that, we have a receipt smart button up at the top, which will actually process once we receive the Catrys from our Cat Cafe. I can access that receipt by clicking on the receipt smart button that we have over here at the top of the page, or by clicking on the receive products button at the top of the order. So let's actually do that. So let's receive our products because on the receipt form over here, we see a purple quality checks button right there. This means that this order has one or more quality checks that need to be completed. If I click on the quality checks button right there, a pop-up window appears from which we can process the check. In this case, the check is asking us does the Catry stand up? I don't know. Let's go check that. Okay, we're going to pretend that I went to go check that. And sadly, let's say 2 out of the 5 Catrys we received fall over no matter how much we want them to stay straight up. So I'm going to click fail at the bottom right there. We're not going to give any notes, but we can if we want to. Now we have another pop-up over here on which we can actually specify the number of defective Catrys inside of our quantity failed. Not all 5 of them. Remember, I said 2 of them are going to fail. And beyond that, you'll notice we see the failure location field that we talked about, which displays all of the failure locations available for this specific quality check. In our case, remember, I only had one option, which is failed bin. So I'm going to select the failed bin. And it changes a little bit of color. I don't know if it's hard for you guys to see, but you can tell that it has now been selected. And once we confirm it right there, it's been tossed into the bin. So in summary, we've told Odoo that 2 out of the 5 Catrys should be sent to the failed bin, while the rest can be entered into our warehouse as stock. Now I just need to click validate up here at the top. And once that we do that over there, both stock moves are validated. We can verify where each product was sent to by clicking on Catry down inside of the products over here and then selecting it once again. And doing so, actually, I just passed it by. Small old doopsie. We're going to select Catry right there. And now inside of this pop-up, we can actually see failed bin, 2 units, and warehouse stock over there are 3 units. And there you have it. Everything was perfect. We are now storing the Catrys that failed the quality check in a location specifically designated for such failed bin items.
Now, before I let you go, I just want to show you how to view the failed bin location itself, along with all the items stored there. So to do so, it's funny enough, that's where I was first headed. I was ahead of myself. We're going to go over here to the inventory application. And then we want to select configuration and locations right there. Now here, I actually just need to select the failed bin. And then once that I'm inside of here, we select the current stock smart button up at the top. And then our cat tree, as you can tell, the resulting page lists all of the products in the failed bin location. Currently, we only have cat trees in the bin. And we can tell from the on-hand field that we have over there telling us there's 11 units of them. A lot of these fail. And that brings us to a close for today, Odooers. If you were paying attention, which I hope you were, you now know how to send products that fail quality checks to designated failure locations. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. I don't have any snacks at my table, but you should.
Test. Is this thing on? Hello. There you are, Odooers. I'm so glad you could join me for yet another quality check lesson. Today, we're going to be learning about worksheet checks. As you already know, Odoo offers a few different check types, but out of all of them, worksheet checks are far and away the most flexible. That's because worksheet checks consist of a worksheet for employees to fill out, a worksheet that you can actually customize to your heart's content. Doesn't that sound pretty powerful? Well, because it is. So let's jump right in. Enough chit chat so I can show you how to take full advantage of all of that power. Now, unlike all of the other quality check types, worksheet checks are not enabled by default. To enable them, we actually need to go over to our manufacturing application over here, and we're going to select configuration and settings, Odooers. Now, inside of the operations tab, which is the first one we see in our section, we're going to make sure that we have both the quality option selected and checked off over there, as well as quality worksheet. If you haven't done that already, be sure to check those off and then save. Always save. Now, enabling this makes the worksheet option appear in the type field when we create a new quality control point, aka QCP or quality check. So you're probably thinking, we're ready to do that, right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. Before we can create a worksheet QCP or a check, we need to create a worksheet template. A worksheet template is a blank form that is filled out by the employee conducting the actual quality check. We can always configure those types of templates with any number of different fields. So to do so, we're actually going to go out of here once we've saved. Make sure you saved. We're going to open up Quality app for quality time. And we're going to select configuration. And you kind of guessed it. We're going to select quality worksheet templates. So I have already configured a template for us to use as an example for the quality check workflow, which you're going to see later inside of this video. So the one that we want to talk about today is chair inspection. But let's click on new to open a blank template, just so I can use that to show you the basics of a template design. So it's actually kind of straightforward because before we can configure the template, we need to give it a name. So let's type, I don't know, something like example, because we're learning example. And then we're going to click on the save manually button. All I'm going to do for this one. So once that we do, a new design template button appears up here at the top. So once that you actually click that, it opens the template in Odoo Studio, allowing us to finally modify it. You give that a little bit of a load, and we're there. So we're only going to cover worksheet template designs in this video, but Odoo Studio can be used to customize a ton of other stuff in your Odoo database. So be sure to check out our videos on that. So inside of Studio, the main part of the screen shows us the actual template itself. Templates are created with two default fields. We have what's called comments, and then we also have a text entry field, which allows employees to leave comments, and passed as well, which is a little checkbox that employees can enable to confirm the check has passed. So over here we have a left sidebar. There is a variety of other fields that I can drag and drop onto this template to customize it. This includes, well, if you take a look at all of what we got, more checkboxes. We have stuff for images, it looks like, and even something for files. It's kind of useful. Whole lot more too. In fact, I can also, if you notice it, I can even add tabs, which happens to be also on this list as the component as well. And that's if I want to have multiple pages or even just columns as well, just to help organize the fields in it. Let's, in our case, I think we should have a date. It's always good to have dates on these things. We'll just put it right there. We're just going to drag and drop it. If I want to customize the fields itself,
I can click on new date as a field itself, and then it'll allow me to basically just change stuff over here on the other column as properties. So from here, I can do a few things, including making the field required, which you just tick the required field right there, and it makes it now a required checkbox. And now we can also change the name by typing in something like today's date. Sweet. Now we give that a second to load it up. And now I could even add a tooltip to provide an explanation about the field. Like if I type in something like specify, if I can spell the day, the actual date, boom, we're done. And that's our little tooltip. Once again, oops, clicked away, but we're still okay. I can also remove the field from the actual template by scrolling to the very bottom of the view tab over here. And you guessed it, we want to select remove from view and then hit OK. Gone. The date itself is just gone. And those are the basics of designing a worksheet template inside of Odoo Studio. Not too difficult, right? We stumbled together.
So now let's take a look at a QCP that I've configured to create worksheet quality checks using the chair inspection worksheet template that I configured ahead of time. This worksheet only has one field, which is a checkbox titled Assembly Complete, which an employee can check to confirm the assembly of a product has indeed been completed. So to get to the QCP, I'm actually going to click on the word quality control up at the top and select control points over here. And we want to find our chair inspection one and open it up, or QCP 00015. So I've set the products field over here to the chair product, and the operations itself is main warehouse manufacturing operation. This means that a quality check will be created every time an MO is confirmed for one or more chairs. So inside of the type field over here, you'll notice I happen to have worksheet quality check type. This check type selected allows two new sections to appear below. The first is titled templates, and it allows us to select a worksheet template to use for this check. I've selected the chair inspection worksheet that I talked about earlier as well. And then below that we have success conditions as a section, which is used to configure the rules that the completed worksheet must meet for the check to pass. I can add additional rules by clicking on new rule if I would like to as well. Each rule has 3 fields to configure, with the second and third changing depending on the condition selected in the first field. In this case, I have the condition over here is set to assembly complete as a checkbox right there. And then once that we have that, it is the only field on the chair inspection worksheet template that we've selected above. Any field included on the worksheet template will appear here as a condition, along with some other default conditions that are always available, like the date that the quality check was created, along with the specific employee who filled it out, and that's pretty important. So up next, beyond that, you also have the option to select the field which is set to as is or is not, which in our case, for our equation, we set it to is. And in the final field, we can select the set or not set. In this case, I've selected it to be selected to set. But your rule might actually differ. Altogether, this rule reads as assembly complete is set, which means that the assembly complete checkbox must be enabled for the rule to be met and the check to pass. So try to figure out the logic for your rules. So finally, I just want to make a quick note about the message if failure tab over here at the bottom of the QCP. Here I've instructed employees to create a quality alert if the check fails. So now that we've seen how a worksheet QCP is configured, let me show you how to process a check created by one. I've already created an MO for one unit of our chair product. So I'm actually going to open it now. So we're going to go inside of the manufacturing application, operations, and manufacturing orders. Let's open up our sole one right there. So since the QCP we looked at automatically created a quality check, small o doopsie for this MO, a purple quality checks button appears up at the top of the MO. So I'm going to click on that button and we have a pop-up window from which I can complete our worksheet check over here from earlier, the assembly complete checkbox. We can check it off or leave it unchecked and then click save. Remember, checking the box passes the check while leaving it unchecked causes it to fail. So if I click the checkbox, the quality check will pass and I can move on with the rest of the MO. However, let's see what happens when the checkbox is left unchecked. So let's hit save, and after I do so, whoops, look at that. A new pop-up window appears with the message that I entered if it's failed. If you recall, this is the same one as the message if failure tab. So I'm going to click OK to exit out of this, at which point a purple quality checks button is replaced by a quality alert button up here at the top, which when you click it will open a quality alert form in a new page. And that's everything I've got to show you for now, doers. As a last quick tip, you'll notice that as well, the smart button up at the top has turned red now. Today, you learn how to configure new quality worksheet templates, create QCPs using the worksheet type, and process worksheet quality checks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hello, doers. My name is Jose Ignacio, and it's good to see you again. Now, today we're jumping into manufacturing reporting, specifically the production analysis report. You see, there are a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself when running a manufacturing operation. How long does it take to manufacture each product? How much does it cost? How much do I need to pay my workers for each product they manufacture? And the list goes on. If you want your operation to be profitable, these are all important factors to consider. And luckily, the production analysis report in Odoo's manufacturing app can tell you all of that and so much more. So, enough chit chat. Let's hop into our database now to see how it all works. So, to open up the production analysis report, I'm actually going to navigate over to our manufacturing application, select reporting up at the top, production analysis, and there we are. So, by default, the report is displayed as a line chart, but I could also view it if I wanted to as something such as a bar chart or a pie chart, which is always my favorite one. Each graph type shows the data broken down by weeks. You can also view the data inside of a pivot table format by selecting it up here in the top right corner, and there you have it. So each row that we have over here on the pivot table shows the data for one specific product. But let's jump back into our line chart because that was a little bit intense. Okay, so the data presented and the way it's displayed are affected by two factors. We have the measures drop-down menu that we have over here and the search bar that we have up at the top center. If I click into this measures menu once again, I can actually select from a variety of different data sets. By default, average total cost / unit is being used, but I can also choose a different metric like, let's assume, average operation cost. As you can see, only one measure option can be selected at a time. With a data set selected, we can use the search bar over here to show how it's displayed on the report. By default, a filter is enabled, so only data for MOs completed during the current year are the ones that are shown. I can also add a custom filter by entering a product's name into the search bar. For instance, I could type in the word, let's assume it's coat rack. And look at that, only the data for that specific product is shown. Speaking of the search bar, if we click on this little down arrow that we have over here, we have our mega menu filter and grouping options. So let's talk about one area, and it is actually the end date section that we have. And this allows me right here that I used and the comparison to be able to see a desired time period for the data. The group by section that we have over here in the center allows me to group data by products or end date. And finally, the one that I glanced over earlier is our comparison area, which is our end date previous period, end date previous year as well. So both of these options allow us to compare data from two different time periods. We're going to use this section in a use case later in the video, so I won't go into too much detail about it right this instant. The main thing that you should know is that the comparison feature should only be used with the pie chart graph type or the pivot table. Using a comparison on a different view won't have any effect. All right, with all of those nitty-gritty details out of the way, I want to close this video by showing you a few use cases for the production analysis report. So first, we're actually going to want to reset this report to its default state by clicking on the refresh button inside of our browser. Once that refreshes, we'll continue. So for our first use case, we're going to compare two different products, our oak chair and our cane chair, just to see which takes longer to produce. This can be useful when deciding how much of your manufacturing resources should be dedicated to one product or another. So I'm going to keep the default end date filter in place, and I'm going to start by entering the names of the products that we want to compare inside of the search bar. So the very first one that I'm going to type in is that oak chair, select it. And then the next one that I said, cane chair, select it. Okay, now we have both of them right there. So I'm going to open up the search bar drop-down menu now this time around, and this time I'm going to select the product option underneath the group by. And we're already getting somewhere. So now I'm also going to open up the measures drop-down, small o doopsie over here, and we're going to select duration of operations, because remember I said which one takes longer. And finally, all I need to do is select the bar type of graph right there. And now we have it. And wow, as you can see, we now see the average time it takes to produce 1 unit of each of these products. And well, it looks like it takes us twice as long to make 1 cane chair. Based on this, we can make an informed decision about whether we want to keep producing the same number of cane chairs or maybe dedicate more resources over here to producing our oak chairs. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's refresh the page once again to reset it, and this time it's going to be faster. Okay, so for this next example, we're going to take a look at how to use the reports comparison feature. Let's say that we want to compare quarters 1 and 2 of this fiscal year to see which items we spent the most money producing inside of each quarter. So I'm going to start by selecting the pie chart, because remember, I mentioned that it only works in those ones. So I'm going to click on measures drop down over here once again, and this time I want to see total cost. Great. Now I'm going to open up the drop down menu of the search bar once again, and this time what I want to click on is the end date section that we had over here. And you'll notice it lets us select some other stuff. I want to add the Q2 filter over there as well. And finally, the other one that I want to see is the comparison section. I'm going to select the end date previous period over here, just so that I could see that. And as you can see, selecting this option divides the pie chart into 2 sections. The outer section that we have over here is Q2 of 2024. And the inner section that we have inside of here shows us our Q1. Based on this, we can see that the products that we spent the most money producing in the second quarter were it looks like a bike and a cabinet. Wonderful. So during the first quarter, the product that we spent the most money producing was, once again, the cane chair. Keeps coming back. So if I had selected the end date previous year filter instead, let's go see that, actually. Going up here to the top. The inner circle would show the same time period as the outer circle, quarter 2, but for the previous year. In this case, that would actually be 2023. And that brings us to the end of this tutorial video. If you've been paying attention, you'll know that there's quite a lot that you can do with the production analysis report. Now, this video provided a few examples, but it would be impossible to cover every single way the report can be used. There are simply far too many options, which is exactly what makes it so powerful. So with that, doers, the best thing that you can do is jump into your database and play around with all the different options to see how they interact and whether or not you break stuff. That's all for today, folks. I'll see you next time. Hello, doers! As always, it's so good to see you again. Today, I'm coming at you with another great manufacturing app tutorial. This time, we're going to be talking about overall equipment effectiveness, or OEE for my acronym lovers, which is one of the manufacturing app's reporting features. The OEE feature tracks the amount of time a work center is fully productive versus the amount of time it is operating at reduced speed or when it is blocked from being used. Now, before we jump into our database, I want to take a little time to define the different work center statuses. This is going to make it easier to understand the OEE report when we look at it later. So, first off, we have fully productive time. When a work center is fully productive, it means it's processing a work order that has not exceeded its expected duration. For example, if a work order has an expected duration of, let's say, 60 minutes, and it is completed in 57 minutes, all of that time is considered to be fully productive. Now, up next, we have reduced speed, which is when a work center is processing a work order that has exceeded its expected duration. Using our previous example of a work order with an expected duration of 60 minutes, let's say it takes 70 minutes to complete. The extra 10 minutes is counted as reduced speed time. Reduced speed negatively impacts a work center's OEE score, even though the work center is operational. And then finally, we have a few different statuses, all of which result in the work center being blocked or prevented from receiving work orders. These include equipment availability, equipment failure, Steve, and process defects, as well as a few others. Okay, Steve wasn't the real one, but you get my point. All right, now that we've learned about all of those statuses, let's see how we can configure Work Center to properly track OEE with Odoo. So here we are on the main dashboard. I'm going to start by opening up the manufacturing application over here, going up to configuration, and then Work Centers. Let's select our Assembly Station 2 over here. And here we have its form. So there are 3 fields we need to focus on over here inside of the production information header. The ones that we want to focus on is time efficiency, capacity, and OEE target. So I think it's time for me to break down time efficiency real quick. Now, time efficiency refers to how efficient the work center is processing work orders. An efficiency value of 100% means that the work center processes work orders at the rate of their expected duration. Alternatively, an efficiency value of, let's say, 50% or to 100% would signify that the work center processes work orders at half the speed or twice the speed, respectively. That makes sense, right? So let's jump back over to our database, and I'm going to discuss those other fields further. So here we have capacity right there. You'll notice it just says 1, which means that the work center can only handle 1 unit at a time. So if an MO is created for 2 units of a product with a work order that takes 10 minutes, it would take 20 minutes to process it at this work center because you'd have to manufacture each unit one at a time. So finally, we have the OEE target right there. I've set it to 90%. This is our goal for how much of the work center's operating time should be fully productive time. So we want this work center to be fully productive at least 90% of the time. I know that is a lot of info to take in at once, Odooers. It's important to have these values set correctly. Doing so ensures that Odoo properly tracks fully productive time versus reduced speed time. All right, let's actually move on to the OEE report itself. There are a couple of ways that we can actually view it. First, I can actually navigate over to my overview page that we have over here, and then we will see our actual work centers. And on the card for each of the work centers, they have an OEE button that we can see here. Some are in red, some are in green. So this number that we have right there represents the percentage of fully productive time for the work center. The number that appears in green for, in our case, this drill station 1 over here means the work center is at or above its OEE target. On assembly station 1, as I just talked about the red color over here, we have it, well, it's in red, which means that the work center is not meeting its OEE targets. If I click on the OEE button on one of these cards, like in our case, let's select the green one because it's better to show it there. I'm taken to the OEE report for that specific work center. If I want to view OEE data for every work center, I actually need to click on, actually over here in reporting, almost went to the wrong area, sorry about that, overall equipment effectiveness. And there we have it. Like most reporting dashboards, I can view the data as, in our case, bar chart, line chart, pie graph, everything you want. We can even go further than that and go all the way over here and do pivot tables, lists. Honestly, you can name it through all of these. So for now, let's actually go back over to our graphs, and we're going to stick with our bar chart over here. So each view shows me the total amount of time tracked for each work center, as well as how that time is broken down into various work center statuses. So once again, at drill station 1, for example, we can see that most of the track time has been fully productive time, which happens to be that dark blue section over there. Now, this is a smaller portion over here that we have reduced speed time in the nice little orange right there. So now, in our case, let's talk about how each status type is tracked for a work center. So this can be accomplished through the manufacturing app or the shop floor module. So in our case, I've created an MO for our coat wrap product to use as an example. So I'm going to open that now. We're going to go to operations and manufacturing orders. And just as I talked about it right now, we have this one right there. Our nice little coat rack. So on the MO, I'm going to select the work orders tab over here. And here's where the OEE report comes into play. If, in our case, the real duration that we have right there is less than the expected duration over there, the time is counted as fully productive. If, in our case, the expected duration that we have over there is actually going to be more, then we have a situation where that excess time is counted as reduced speed if the real duration exceeds that 60 of expected. Okay, but what about when a work center is blocked? How do we track that? As the more eagle-eyed Odooers may have already guessed, we do so by clicking on the block button that we have right there on a work order. So we're actually going to do that right now for this drill pull. And right now we have the block work center pop-up that appears. I need to choose a loss reason. So I think it's going to be the reason why this was lost. There are a few options to choose from, including material availability, equipment failure, setup, process defect, reduce yield, and the list goes on. Or if I wanted to, I can actually just start typing and click create once that I get typing away. So our selected reason is then recorded on the OEE report for this work center. For this one, I'm going to select equipment failure, and then I'm just going to click block. I don't want to say what happened. So once the work center is ready to be used once again, all I need to do is click unblock on the line of the work order. And just doing that, immediately we're ready to go once again. Okay, so before I finish this tutorial, I just want to quickly mention that work centers can also be blocked and unblocked from the shop floor module. So back over here on our main dashboard, we're going to open up shop floor. and take a look at any work order over here. And you'll want to click on these three dots in the bottom right. And this is our additional options menu on a work order. And to unlock, or in this case, unblock it or block it, you just click on this button at the bottom. And that's how you do it. And that's it for now, folks. Thanks for sticking around until the end. You're now ready to use the OEE report to gain deeper insights into the productivity of your work centers. I'm going to see you soon, O-doers. Go grab a snack. Welcome back, my alligators. Wait a second. That's supposed to say allocators. I need to talk with my script writers about that, oh doopsie. Anyways, as you may have guessed, we're talking about allocation today. You see, when products or components are manufactured, we sometimes want to use them to prioritize certain sales orders or manufacturing orders. For example, maybe we have a super important customer who has just ordered one of our cabinets. We get a lot of cabinet orders, but this customer is so important that we want to send them the very next cabinet that we manufacture. Well, by using the allocation reports feature inside of the Odoo's manufacturing app, we can quickly reserve a cabinet from our next MO to make sure it gets sent to the VIP customer and isn't used for a different order. So, enough chit chat. Let's jump into our database and see how that works. All right, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that allocation reports are enabled. So to do so, I need to head into the manufacturing application, select configuration and settings. So underneath the operations header over here, you want to scroll down to the very bottom, and the checkbox next to allocation report for manufacturing orders should be checked off. I've already done it on my database, so make sure you do the same in yours. And remember, what am I going to say here? Hit save. Always save if you haven't done so already. Now moving forward, let's say that I've just gotten a call from Jim Joe Kelly. You may remember him from previous videos. That's because he orders a lot of stuff from us. That makes him a true VIP, a very important purchaser. As such, we want to make sure that we prioritize any orders he places with us. So Jim Joe wants to order one of our cabinets. To get started on his order, we're going to head out of here and head over to the sales application. Select new RFQ, request for quotation for my non-acronym lovers. So for a customer, select Jim Joe Kelly. Got to make sure he's selected right there. And in our order lines, I'm going to select a new cabinet right there. Perfect. And then once we're done with that, let's confirm this so that we turn it into a sales order. So with the sales order confirmed, I'm going to click on the delivery smart button up at the top over here. So inside of the product availability, actually the product availability itself right now, it says it's not available, which means we don't have any cabinets available to fulfill this order. So since we manufacture our cabinets, we're going to need to make one to send to Jim Joe. However, we need to make sure that the first cabinet we make goes straight to his order and not to any other. This is where an allocation report comes into play. To start, let's head over to the manufacturing app right there. And then what do we want to select? Well, we need to create an MO for 10 cabinets, which allows us to fulfill Jim Joe's order. And we have to have some cabinets left over. So to do that, I'm going to select operations, manufacturing orders. And you guessed it. Now you want to select new. Perfect. So from here, I'm going to add the cabinet up at the top for the product. And the quantity right there for the cabinets is 10, as I said before. Now I'm going to confirm this with a big old purple confirm button. So once I confirm the MO, an allocation smart button appears in the top center. And in this case, the smart button appears immediately because we have SOs or MOs that require one or more cabinets, and there's not enough stock available to fulfill those orders. If there were enough cabinets available to fulfill any existing SOs, the allocation smart button would still appear, but only after we complete the MO by clicking produce all, which is over here on the left. And as you may have guessed, if there are no SOs or MOs that require the product being manufactured, the allocation smart button does not appear at all. Anyways, in this case, I'm just going to click on the produce all at the top of the MO just to complete the manufacturing of our cabinets and make them available for order fulfillment. Now, let's click the allocation smart button, which, in this case, opens up the MRP reception report for this MO. The report lists every open order for which one or more cabinets are required. This includes our order of one cabinet for, as you guessed it, Jim Joe Kelly, right there at the bottom, as well as orders for Abigail Peterson, not a VIP, Jacob Johnson, also not a VIP,
You may notice that all of the orders listed here are sales orders. This is because a cabinet is a finished product, one that is sold to customers. If we were manufacturing a component like the wood used to make our cabinets, for example, this page would show any manufacturing orders that require that component. Very, very cool. Now, like all of our customers, we love Abigail and Jacob and appreciate that they've decided to come to us to fulfill their cabinet needs. However, we don't love them quite as much as we love Jim Joe. He is quite a big spender after all. So we need to make sure that one of the cabinets in this MO is allocated for Jim Joe's order specifically. We wouldn't want to receive an order for 10 cabinets and have all of the ones we're manufacturing get used for that order instead of Jim Joe's. Am I right? Right. So what I'm going to do is click on the, in our case, assign button to Jim Joe Kelly. And doing so reserves 1 unit of the cabinet. This means it will appear as unavailable for other orders, even though we have it in stock. I'm sure you noticed that there's also an assign all button, as you saw over here. If we click this, it would assign cabinets to every quantity required for the order. This doesn't apply to Jim Joe's order since he only ordered 1 cabinet. However, it's useful for orders like, in our case, Jacob's, where his order requires 1 quantity of 3 units and another quantity of 1 unit as well. All right. After clicking assign on Jim Joe's order, the button changes to, in our case, unassign if we wanted to. If I click this, it would unassign the cabinet from his order and make it available for others. Additionally, we also have the option to print a label to the extreme right of the order, and that can now be selected as well. Clicking this would generate and download a PDF document with a label that I could print out to attach to the cabinet to signify it has been reserved for this specific order. Now that we've assigned a cabinet to Jim Joe, let's return out of this and into his delivery order by clicking on the WH, in our case, out button over here next to his sales order. So here we can actually see product availability now is green. This means the cabinet is available to be shipped out. Once we ship it, all we need to do is click on the validate button up here at the top and we're all done. Whew. And that's all I've got for you today, doers. You now know how to use allocation reports to reserve products for specific orders. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm going to see you next time.
Good morning, my beloved O-Doers. Today we're talking scrap, specifically how to scrap components and products during and after the manufacturing process. You see, sometimes a component or finished product can't be used for a variety of reasons. Perhaps the vendor sent us a defective component, or maybe a component or finished product was damaged during or after manufacturing. Scrapping a component or product removes it from our inventory and places it in a location designated to store scrap. Odoo also gives us the option to replenish the product quantity that was scrapped, allowing us to get back to manufacturing as quickly as possible. Ready to see how this all works? All right, let's get scrapping. Now, the first thing I should mention is that the scrapping process works a little differently when using one-step manufacturing compared to 2 or 3-step manufacturing. Let's take a look at the one-step process first. To begin, I need to go to the inventory application, select configuration, and then our warehouses. I'm going to go ahead and use our main warehouse for this example, and we want to make sure that manufacturer one step is enabled in our manufacturer section. Then I'm going to click on products once again, and then select our wooden pole product. This is the component used for our coat rack product, and it's the component that we'll be scrapping as an example for the first part of this tutorial. Under the inventory tab here, we want to make sure that the buy route is selected in the operations section. This is the route that will be used to replenish the product after we scrap it. We can always select a different route if we want to replenish it using a different method, but at least one route needs to be selected in order to use replenishment. Since we've enabled the buy route, we need to click on the purchase tab, and we need to make sure that a vendor has been added as well as the price that they sell this product for. Perfect, looks like we're all set there. The last thing I want to point out is that we only have 1 unit of our wooden pole in stock. This will come into play shortly. With all of our settings the way we want them, I'm going to jump over to our manufacturing application and create a new MO by clicking on Operations, Manufacturing Orders, and then New. I'll go ahead and select our coat rack and then confirm the MO. Now, let's say that the wooden pole component I pulled from the inventory has a big crack in it. That won't make for a very sturdy coat rack now, will it? So I'm going to click on the Scrap button here at the top of the page, and then the Scrap Products pop-up window will appear. In the window, I'll start by clicking the Product drop-down menu. Notice how the only products that can be selected are the two components used to manufacture the finished product, not the finished product itself. Remember that because we'll come back to it later. For now, I'll just select the wooden pole product in the product field, and I'll leave the quantity field set to 1 since that's the amount I'm scrapping. I'm also going to enable the replenish quantities checkbox since I want to get a new unit of the wooden pole to continue with the MO. Finally, I'll scrap the products by clicking the Scrap Products button. And once we do, a few things happen. First, in the chatter, the MO status changes from ready to waiting since we're missing the wooden pole component. Also, the component status field now reads not available since the component is now in stock. We also have two new smart buttons at the top of the page. The first one is titled Scraps, which shows us all the scrap orders created for this MO, and the second smart button is titled Purchases, which shows us the purchase orders that were created to replenish the wooden pole product. I'm going to confirm the product purchase order by clicking on the smart button, clicking confirm, then receive products, followed by a validate to enter the new component into the inventory. When I return to the MO by using the breadcrumbs here, the component status now reads available. And at the status of the MO in the chatter changed back from waiting to ready. I'm now able to manufacture the coat rack, at which point I'll click on Produce All to complete the MO. Very cool. Now, I should mention that this process is a bit different if there are more components in stock. In that case, when a component is scrapped, the MO remains ready and the component status still reads available. No purchase order is created as the user is expected to simply take the scrapped quantity from the existing inventory. Now, before we leave this page, I want to use this completed MO to show you one more thing. Remember how when we were only able to select the components in the product field on the scrap orders pop-up window? Well, now the product has been manufactured. If we click the scrap button once again, the product field here will allow us to scrap the finished product. I'll select the coat rack, enable replenish quantities, and then scrap. Since the coat rack uses a manufacture route, a new MO has been created to replace the unit of the product, which we can see by going to Operations, Manufacturing Orders, and then clicking the most recently created MO. All right, before we finish today, I just want to show you the scrapping process when using 2 or 3-step manufacturing. It's fairly similar, but different enough that it's worth taking a look at. We'll start by returning back to the inventory application, clicking Configuration, Warehouses, and then selecting our main warehouse once again. This time, we'll select the Pick Components, then Manufacture 2-step option in our Manufacture section. Then we'll return to the Manufacturing app to create another MO for our coffee table. And just like last time, we're going to go to Operations, Manufacturing Orders, and we'll select New, and we'll add Coffee Table. You'll notice that once we confirm the order, the MO status in the chatter appears as waiting. Another operation. This is because 2 and 3-step manufacturing require components to be transferred to the production location before the MO is marked as ready. With that in mind, I'll click the Transfer Smart button at the top of the page to open the Pick Components Transfer, and then I'll simply go ahead and select Validate to process it. When I return to the MO, the status is now ready in the chatter. All right, let's say that the tabletop component that we picked has a large scratch on top of it. I'll scrap it the same way as before by clicking on Scrap and selecting Tabletop in the drop-down field. Once we do, enabling the Replenish Quantities checkbox here, and then clicking Scrap Products. Once I do, the MO status changes to Waiting back here in the chatter, just like in our previous example. However, unlike 1-step manufacturing, no purchase order is created to replenish the scrapped quantities. Instead, a new picking order has been created to transfer the replacement tabletop to the production location, which I can access by clicking on the Transfer Smart button at the top of the page and selecting the Pick Components Transfer marked as ready. I'll transfer this by clicking Validate and return to the MO via the breadcrumbs once again, where I can go ahead and see that the MO status appears as ready and available. And that's how you replenish scrap quantities using 2 or 3-step manufacturing. Now, in the case we were able to process the replenishment picking transfer right away since had an extra tabletop in stock. However, if there were no extra tabletops, we would need to manually create an order to replenish them before validating the pick. A purchase order if they were bought, or a manufacturing order if they are manufactured. And that, my dear Odoers, brings us to the end of another great tutorial. Today I showed you how to scrap components and finished products from manufacturing orders and how to replenish the quantities that were scrapped. That's all for today, and I'll see you next time. Hello again, my dear Odoers. I'm so excited that you decided to join me on another awesome tutorial. Today we're talking about consumption, and I don't mean tuberculosis. That's something I should talk to my doctor about. No, I'm talking about flexible consumption for manufacturing components. You see, sometimes it's necessary to use a different quantity of components that is what's specified on the bill of materials or BOM. This is pretty common in industries like food service where the size of specific ingredients may vary. For example, let's say I'm making a dozen souffles, which normally requires the use of 24 eggs. However, I wasn't able to get the extra large eggs that I normally buy, so I had to settle for the regular sized eggs. This means I'll actually need 30 eggs to make my souffle. In Odoo, the flexible consumption feature allows me to use a different component quantity than the one specified on my BOM while still keeping my inventory accounts accurate. So let's jump in and see how this all works. Now, the cool thing about flexible consumption is that we can choose whether it's allowed or blocked for each product we manufacture. To do so, we need to navigate to you guessed it, the BOM of our specific product. For that, I'm going to jump to our manufacturing application, click on products, and head to our bill of materials. On the bill of materials page, I'm going to go ahead and search for my cheese souffle. Then open up the miscellaneous tab right here. And here you're going to notice there's a section called flexible consumption, which includes 3 different operations to choose from. If I select the allowed option, flexible consumption will always be allowed. If I select the allowed with warning section, then flexible consumption will be allowed, but users will receive a warning notification that requires them to confirm that they are intentionally using a different amount. Finally, if I select the blocked option, only managers will be able to close manufacturing orders for which a different component quantity has been used. For this video though, I'm going to just go ahead and leave it on the allowed with warning option. All right, what do you say we make some souffles? I've already created a MO for a dozen souffles, so let's go ahead and open that now by heading to our operations and selecting manufacturing orders. And then we're just going to select the most recent cheese souffle MO with the lower MO number. On the components tab at the bottom of the MO, we can see the to consume. That is producing a dozen souffles that typically requires 24 eggs, 500 grams of Parmesan cheese, and then 1 liter of heavy cream. Now, let's use the example from the introduction and say that we actually need 30 eggs to fulfill this MO. No problem. All I need to do is click on the quantity field right here and then enter the number 30. Then I need to enable the checkbox in the column consumed. And if you don't see this column in your database, you can enable it by clicking the additional options button to the right of the MO tab and then enabling the consume checkbox if necessary. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and close this MO out by clicking produce all. Once I do, as you can see, a pop-up window appears titled consumption warning, which requires me to confirm that I'm intentionally consuming a greater quantity of components than what is listed in the BOM. This pop-up window appears because I selected allowed with warning as the option for the product's BOM. If I had selected allowed, the MO would be closed out without giving me a warning. At the bottom of the pop-up are 3 buttons here. The confirm button confirms that a different quantity is being consumed on purpose and then simply just closes out the MO. The set quantities and validate button goes ahead and reverts the consumed quantities back to what is specified on the BOM and then closes out the MO. The discard button closes the pop-up window and then just leaves the MO open. If we had selected the blocked flexible consumption option on the product's BOM, then the confirm button would not appear for regular users. In that case, a manager would need to close the MO out themselves. But I'll go ahead and just click confirm to close this out, and just like that, we've made a dozen souffles. Now, if you've watched a lot of our manufacturing app tutorials, then you probably know that MOs can also be processed from the shop floor module. If so, you're probably wondering if it's possible to use flexible consumption in shop floor as well. And the answer is, of course. Out of Do, we really think of everything. To do so, you'll need to create a quality control point or QCP that creates register consumed materials quality checks during the manufacturing process. To create a new QCP, I just need to go to the quality application, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on quality control and then quality control points. And then what we can go ahead and do is select this new button here. But for this example, I've already configured a QCP. So let me show you how it's configured. First, I'm just going to go to the search bar, remove our quality points filter, and then choose our QCP001 here. As you can see, we have our cheese souffle product selected here in the product form field. And we also have in our manufacturing field in the operations tab, and then in the mix operation for the work order operation field. This means that every time a manufacturing order is confirmed for cheese souffles, a quality check will be created for the mix operation. We also have to select the register consumed materials in the type field and select eggs in the product register field. As a result, the quality check that gets created will ask us to confirm the total number of eggs we use for the MO. That's just a basic overview of how to configure a QCP for the specific workflow, but QCP behaviors vary greatly based on the setting of this form. So be sure to check out our quality control points video for a full overview of all their configuration options. I'll make sure to link that down below. Now, we're all ready to produce another batch of souffles using the shop floor module. I've already created a second MO to use as an example, so let's go ahead and head over to the shop floor now. On the card for the MO, I'll go ahead and click on Assembly Station 1 and open up the page for the work center where the mix operation can be carried out. Then I'm going to go ahead and click on Egg Check right here to register and open it up. In the quantity field, it's currently set to 24, so I'll just go ahead and change this to 30 like we did in the previous example and click on Validate. After that, I can just go ahead and mark this as done and complete the work order by clicking the Close Production to close the MO. Once I do, the consumption warning pop-up window appears just like it did on the last MO we processed in the backend. And just like last time, I'll just click on the Confirm to close the MO out. Now, let's go ahead and hop over to the back end of the MO. And to do that, we're just going to head over to the manufacturing applications, hit operations, and then manufacturing orders once again. And this time, I'm just going to remove the to-do filter to see all of our completed MOs and click on our most recent cheese souffle MO. If we look here, we can go ahead and see in the quality consumed, in the components tab, we have 30 units set that were consumed just like we expected. And that's it for now, my dear O-doers. Today you learned how to use flexible consumption on MOs in both the backend and shop floor module. Stay tuned for another awesome tutorial, but until then, I'll see you soon. Welcome back, O-doers. Today we're talking about how to create product kits using the Bill of Materials feature in the manufacturing app. What is a kit, you ask? Well, have you ever purchased a product you had to build yourself? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you bought a desk that you had to assemble and spent the rest of the night fighting with your roommate or significant other about whether the legs are screwed on correctly. Well, that product is known as a kit. A kit benefits manufacturers since they only have to worry about purchasing or producing the required components and packaging them together. Odoo allows you to add kits to other bills of materials or BOMs, which is useful if the item in the kit are used to manufacture a variety of different products in your catalog. All right, let's jump into our database to see how it all works. Let's say we run a personal computer business called Cal's Computers. Here at Cal's, we sell ready-to-use computers as well as computer kits that customers can assemble at home. To create a kit, we need to start by configuring a bill of materials or BOM. I've created a BOM ahead of time, so I'll open that by navigating to the manufacturing application, selecting products, and then bill of materials, and then selecting the Computer Essentials Kit BOM. This kit contains 3 essential elements used in every computer we sell: a power supply, computer case, and then a cooling fan. In the BOM type field on the right here, I've selected kit. This means that whenever this kit is included in a manufacturing or delivery order, it gets broken down into its individual components. Now let's click on products, and then products again, then find the computer essentials kit. You'll notice on the on hand field, we have 100 units of this kit. This is despite the fact that we haven't actually created one of these kits yet. How can that be, you may ask? Well, the one on hand for a kit always defaults to the number of kits that can be created with the quantity of components on hand. Since we have 100 of each component on hand for 100 computer cases, 100 cooling fans, and 100 power supplies, we can create 100 total kits, so the on-hand count defaults to that number. Now, for this particular kit, we sell it to customers so they can build their own computers. We also use it to build computers that we sell fully built. Let's see an example of each of these workflows. First, let's sell a kit to a customer. I'll jump over to my sales application, click New, and in the customer field, I'll select our old friend Jim Joe Kelly. Then I'll go ahead and click on Add a Product. And in the Order Lines tab, I'll select the Computers Essentials Kit in the product field. All right, everything looks good, so I'll click Confirm to turn this RFQ into a sales order or SO. After doing so, you'll notice the kit is still the only product listed in the Order Lines tab. This is what the customer sees when they receive a copy of their SO. However, the workers picking the components of the kit need a little bit more information than that, which is where the delivery order comes into play. I'll open it now by clicking the Delivery Smart button at the top of the page. On the delivery order, the kit is broken down into its individual components. This tells our warehouse workers that they need to create the kit by picking each of these components and putting them in the same package. Once that's done and the package has been sent, they just need to click Validate to complete the delivery order. Pretty awesome, but what about using a kit during the manufacturing process? Well, one of the really cool things about kits is that they can also be added as components to BOMs for other products. In the case of our Computer Essentials kit, we use all of the components within it in almost every computer model we build. So instead of adding these components to every computer BOM individually, we can just add the kit. To see what I mean, let's jump back into the manufacturing app. And we'll go ahead and select Products, and then Build Materials. And we'll go ahead and select our example BOM, Turbo Computer. For this BOM, I've actually added 2 different kits to the Components tab. The Computer Essentials kit contains all the basic components we use in each computer model we sell. And then the Turbo Computer kit contains all the components specific to our Turbo Computer product. With both of these kits included in the BOM, we have everything we need to build our Turbo Computer. Now, let's see what happens when we use this BOM for a manufacturing order, or MO. To do so, I'll click on Operations, Manufacturing Orders, and then click on New to create a new MO. In the product field, I'll select our Turbo Computer. Once I do, the Components tab automatically updates with all the components needed to build the computer. As you can see, the kits themselves are not included here, only the individual components within them. And the best part is I can continue using our Computer Essentials kit to configure the BOMs for different computer models. For example, if we wanted to start manufacturing a basic computer product, all I would need to do is add the Essentials kit to the new BOM along with the other required components, or a kit that contains them. And just like that, you've made it to the end of another amazing tutorial. You now know how to configure kits, sell them to customers, and use them in manufacturing orders. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome back, Odoers. My name is Jose Ignacio. Today, I've got another subcontracting video for you. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Dropship Subcontractor on Order route, which allows us to supply a subcontractor with components by having a vendor dropship them. You see, sometimes we want to send a subcontractor components without even possessing them ourselves.
In that type of situation, we can purchase them from a vendor and then have them shipped directly to the subcontractor. This benefits us because we don't have to worry about the cost of receiving and storing the components. Once the subcontractor receives everything they need, they manufacture the product as usual and ship it to us. So, enough chit chat, let's jump in and see how it all works. So once again, we're going to be starting with configuration. Now, I've already covered all of the general subcontracting settings in the basic subcontracting video, so be sure to watch that one if you haven't already. I'm also going to make sure to link that below. So inside of this video, I'm just going to go over the specific configuration settings to this dropship subcontractor on order route. So first off, we need to open up the BOM for the product of this example, which happens to be a bicycle. So to do that, I'm going to head on over to the inventory application, and then we're going to select the word products and products. Now remember, what did I say we're looking for? A bicycle. Perfect. So once that we're inside of here, at the top of this page, we select the smart button for bill of materials. Perfect. Select the bicycle one. And there we are. Now, if you watch the basic subcontracting video, you'll know that we don't need to add components to a BOM for a product manufactured using that workflow. However, in this case, we are responsible for supplying the subcontractor with components and need to list them on the BOM. As you can see on our components tab over here, I've added the components needed to manufacture the bike, which happens to be a frame and a wheel. Well, quantity 2, because you need 2 wheels on a bike. Now let's go to the product page for, in our case, the frame. So we can actually select the internal link right there and takes us right there. So you'll notice inside of the purchase tab over here, we happen to have a vendor, Bike World, along with the price that they are selling this to us, which is $50, as well as a delivery lead time over here. Now this is the vendor that will send the components to our subcontractor once we purchase them. Next, let's click back over here to this inventory tab. So here inside of the routes, as you guessed it, I've selected the dropship subcontractor on order route. And that's what we need. With this route selected, every time we confirm a purchase order or PO for the bicycle over there, a request for quotation or RFQ for my acronym lovers will be generated to purchase the component from the vendor and then have it drop shipped to the subcontractor. All right, I've already configured our wheel component in the same way, so let's move on to the dropship subcontractor workflow. Wow, that is a mouthful. So the first thing that we need to do is to create a purchase order to buy a bicycle from our subcontractor. So I'm actually going to go out of here, and we're going to open up our handy dandy purchase application right there. And inside of here, we're going to select on the word orders up at the top, and you guessed it, purchase orders. And now we're going to select new over here in the top left. Okay, so on the new purchase order, I'm going to add the bicycle's vendor, which happens to be Bike Friends. It's kind of nice. So that goes inside of our vendor field. Then I need to add the bicycle down on the product tab. So add a product down here. We're going to select the bicycle. Okay, great. We're moving pretty fast right here. Everything looks good. So I'm going to confirm our order over here in the top. And then a couple of things have just happened. First, a receipt smart button has appeared up in the top center. And then second, an RFQ is generated to purchase the bicycle's components from the vendor. However, the RFQ is not linked to the PO by a smart button. This is one of the key differences between the dropship subcontractor on order and the resupply subcontractor on order routes. When a PO is confirmed for a product that uses the resupply subcontractor on order route, a resupply smart button appears automatically at the top of this page. However, when using dropship subcontractor on order, the smart button does not appear right away. Instead, the vendor RFQ must first be confirmed, which creates a dropship order to send the components from the vendor to the subcontractor. At that point, a resupply smart button appears on the subcontractor purchase order, which opens the dropship order when clicked. I know that's a bit confusing, so let me show you what I mean. So we're going to start by clicking on orders once again. And then inside of here, remember, it's an RFQ, so request for quotation right there. Now we need to select the one that was just created. So we'll usually find this as the main one up at the very top right there. Perfect. Now, before we confirm it, let's take a look at a few things. First, we can see our component vendor, which happens to be Bike World. And that's already listed in the vendor field right there. In the deliver to field over here, you'll notice it says dropship subcontractor and Bike Friends is listed for the dropship address. It's kind of important. Because finally, inside of our products tab, it lists all of our components, which happens to be the frame and the wheels. Altogether, this information tells us that Bike World will drop ship a frame and 2 wheels to Bike Friends. So let's confirm this right now by selecting right there. And let's see what happens when we do that. So what do you know? As I had just stated, a Dropship Smart button appears at the top of the page. When we click the Dropship Smart button over here, it opens up the dropship order. So once that the vendor has sent the components to the subcontractor, all we need to do is click validate up here at the top of the order. Now the subcontractor has everything they need to start manufacturing the bicycle. Before we move on, there's just one more thing I want to show you on the dropship order. So up at the very top of the page, let's click on the source PO. And that's a little smart button right there. We can go back over here to our subcontractor PO. Remember how I said a resupply smart button would appear after we confirm the vendor RFQ? Well, what do you know, Odoers? It's right there up at the top of the page. Clicking it takes us right back to the dropship order that we just came from. So once the subcontractor manufactures the bicycle and ships it back to us, we need to process the receipt to enter it into our inventory. To do so, I can either click on the receipt smart button, which happens to be at the top of the page, or the receive products. And remember, that will only happen after you have validated these types of things. And it's perfect. Either option opens up the receipt. Then I just have to click that validate button that you just saw me talk about, and the bicycle will be entered. So once that we do all of that, it's all done. We're done. Today, I showed you how to configure a product that happens to use the dropship subcontractor on an order route. You now know how to supply a subcontractor with components without ever having to handle them yourself. And that's pretty nifty, right? That's it for today. I'm going to see you next time.
Hello doers, my name is Jose Ignacio and welcome back for another great tutorial. So today we're actually talking about subassembly, which is when we manufacture a component before using it to manufacture another product. You see, not every product we manufacture is made with pre-made components that are bought ready to use. Sometimes we have to get into the nitty-gritty and manufacture a product's components ourselves. So for example, let's take a look at our wheelie table product. Unsurprisingly, it's a table with wheels. So to manufacture this table, we need to attach our 4 wheelie legs to a tabletop. However, before the legs can be attached, we have to assemble them as well by adding our wheel component to the bottom of our leg component. That means that from start to finish, manufacturing our table requires not 1, but 2 manufacturing orders or MOs. Now I could just manufacture a bunch of the wheelie legs ahead of time. They're ready whenever we want to build a table. However, I'd rather manufacture 4 legs each time I need them for a table. And luckily, Odoo allows me to do just that by automatically creating an MO for our 4 wheelie legs each time an MO for the table is confirmed. So let's manufacture 1 unit of our wheelie table now, just so I can show you how all of this works. Okay, so before we create an MO, we need to make sure that our wheelie table product and all of its components are correctly configured. So in order for us to do that, we actually want to open up our manufacturing application, and we're going to select the word products and products, obviously. So once that we're here, we want to select our wheelie table. So let's find that at the bottom over here. Now from the inventory tab that I've now opened up over here, you can actually see that I've enabled the manufacturer route. Now let's actually take a look at the table's BOMs by clicking on our bill of materials smart button up at the top as well. And we're going to select it in there. Great. So we're there. So if I click inside of the operations tab, you can actually see that this product requires 1 operation at our assembly station, and that happens to be attaching the leg to the tabletop. So on the components tab over here, well, that requires 2 different components. 4 of the wheelie legs, as you can tell by the quantity, and then 1 of the tabletops. So we purchased the tabletop from a vendor and already have a bunch in stock, so we don't have to worry about manufacturing that. We will need to manufacture the wheelie leg, however. So let's open up X products so that we can take a look at that as well. And if we want to jump to it, we can actually just click on this little internal link arrow right there. I love that about Odoo. Now inside of here, let's go to inventory. Now inside of here, you can see that I've selected the replenish on order MTO route as well as the manufacturer routes. The MTO route creates a replenishment order every time there's a need for the component. Since the manufacturer route is selected as well, it creates an MO. Now I want to take a look at this BOM as well for the wheelie leg. So let's go in there as well. Go into our bill of materials, wheelie leg. Great. So here we can actually see that each wheelie leg requires 1 table leg and then 1 wheel as well. Much like the tabletop, we purchased both of these components, but if we wanted to manufacture them, I could open the product pages and configure them the same way that I've configured the wheelie leg. So if I did that, each MO for the wheelie leg would also create an MO for each component. So if we go over here to our operations tab, as you can tell, we also have 1 operation listed for the assembly workstation.
All right, since we have both of the wheelie leg components in stock, we're actually all ready to manufacture our table, so let's go do that. So I am actually going to start by creating an MO for 1 unit of the wheelie table. So to do that, we click on the word operations and then manufacturing orders. And then we want to select the word new. You've done this dance with me a lot. So let's select our wheelie table as our product that we're going to be manufacturing and then confirm this real quick. Great. So once that I do that, a few things happen. First, the forecast section over here on our components tab, as you can tell, it tells us something. It displays today's date for the wheelie leg component as well. This is because we don't have the legs available yet, but Odoo recognizes that we should be finishing manufacturing for them today. How do we go about manufacturing them? Well, you may have also noticed the child MO smart button happens to appear right there. What does that do? So since we enabled the MTO route on our wheelie leg component, an MO was created automatically to fulfill our need for it. As such, Odoo considers that MO the child of this source MO. So we can actually access it by clicking on the child MO button. Let's click into that. So the child MO is linked back to its parents by this source MO smart button that we have now here. And down on the components tab, wouldn't you notice that? We can see that both the components we need are available, as we can tell from our forecast. All right, we're now ready to begin manufacturing our wheelie table. But first, let me show you how planning works for MOs that use subassemblies. We actually want to make sure that the MOs are planned in the correct order so that we won't start working on our wheelie table MO before we've actually manufactured the wheelie legs. So to do so, we're actually going to head back to the manufacturing orders. We have the breadcrumbs, which are Wonder Bread today. We're going to select them both and select plan. And then once we do that, we're going to actually select the planning dropdown from the top. And then we're going to select planning by production. And on this page, I'm going to click on the time period dropdown that we have over here, and I'm going to select the day option. And would you look at that? That's going to give me more detail about how our MOs have been planned. So we're actually going to select the first one that's set to open, which happens to be our attach wheel component right there. This is because Odoo recognizes that the child MO must be completed before the parent MO. Do you notice that the time listed in the stop date field on the popover window for the child activity? It actually gives us something there. Well, if I click away and then I click on the parent MO, you'll notice something. The start date happens to be the exact same time. This is because Odoo knows that once the child MO is completed, all components will be available for the parent MO, so it schedules it to begin immediately after. Now, all we have to do is complete the child MO, and then we'll be ready to start work on the parent MO. At that point, we'll have manufactured 1 unit of our wheelie table. That's pretty cool, right? So for today's example, we use a manufactured product that requires another manufactured product as its components. However, the really cool thing about subassembly products in Odoo is that they can have as many levels as you want. For example, you can manufacture a bike spoke, which is then used to make a bike rim, which is then used to make a bike wheel, which is finally used to produce a full bike. And as you can see, Odoo simplifies the production of even the most complicated multi-step manufacturing workflows, and that's the best part of it. Well, that's it for today, folks. You now know how to manufacture products using subassemblies. I'm going to see you next time. Go grab a snack.